Hello, welcome back to the L1 show that you can share links with your friends. It's March 14th, and we're doing government and social links to share with your friends.
We're back to March, and it's evaporating rapidly.
Yeah.
You know what else is evaporating rapidly? All of our rights.
Also our water. And our water rights.
Both very important things.
Yeah.
And surveillance is just a part of life now. I think we're boiled frogs at this point. But once in a while, some people do push back a little bit, and generally we're told, no, you're not allowed to do that.
SCOTUS
No!
says domestic dying is too secret to be challenged in court. Like this program, it's too secret for you to see the headline from reason.com.
This is probably a paywall alternative. I'm sure that this was carried by other outlets, right?
This is really infuriating because remember the case that spun off this whole, like there was a court case where a bunch of people died, and the widows of the people that died said, "That's weird. Why did they die?" And they said, "Oh, it's state secrets." But that was actually to cover up gross incompetence running the flight, which this article actually does talk about. Like that's the origin of this, not actually state secrets, but trying to cover up a crime. This continues to cover up crime.
And the excuses were pretty boilerplate, just like, no, national security, let's move on.
Which is what happened with the thing. And then when they finally declassified the stuff with the airplane because the widows were persistent, there was no reason for state secrets. It was just because they thought it would be unpopular, and also they look like morons.
And we got to start remembering to not use wired.com either, because I don't have this at home. But the FBI, they have made an admission. Now, we know that the end around for warrantless searches is that you can purchase the data from so many options at this point. We got companies that are out there just trolling license plates on the off chance that they can sell that to the government for some reason, and they often can. But should the FBI be allowed to do that? They didn't bother asking.
The FBI just admitted under oath to the Senate that yes, they have purchased location data to use in their investigations. This is great because we finally have record. Like we on this show have said, oh yeah, they're definitely doing that, just without any real proof or anything, just because all the signs pointed to yes. But now we have somebody under oath.
He kind of weasel worded it though. He was like, well, we had a program like that, but we don't anymore. But it's like, you do. You still have
well, when asked if they did it now, he said not currently. And they asked, are you going to? He said, we have no current plans, meaning that could change.
Yeah, and probably is changing. He finds a meeting after that hearing that's like, let's talk about buying more data.
Well, in his mind, he might have been like, okay, change plan, no current plans, change plan back. So, yeah, obviously. We all know how bad it is. But it is nice to get that little kernel of truth, and you get to nibble on it.
I'm not crazy.
Oh, maybe there's hope. There's no hope. And the fact that there's no hope is perhaps further pointed out by this new admission.
The ACLU has obtained documents detailing the FBI and Pentagon development of facial recognition technology. They want to deploy these in public surveillance cameras on the street, public information, and use that to track individual citizens.
And they are funding all of that development.
Yeah.
And you know that there are hooks in that funding saying that. We get all of it. You can't ask questions. You have to do what we say.
It's the only thing, one of the things that makes this less bad is that up till now, a lot of commercial providers were using Huawei for this because this is built into a lot of their cameras as well.
Oh, yay. It's our guys spying, not theirs.
They were clearly inspired by the CCP here.
Yeah.
I mean, they saw that, and instead of saying, that's awful, they said, we need that.
Once again, Spider-Man meme.
We're not, it's like, if you're on the side of this or against this, okay, whatever. But can we at least do it in the open? Can we have an honest conversation about it? Like the whole spying thing with SCOTUS is like, no, we must not talk about it. And it's like, why must we not talk about it?
Because it's unpopular and people don't want it.
If we're going to do it, we should at least talk honestly about it, right?
And in fact, we're not allowed to talk about it is literal in many of these cases. Like, hey, I just happened to find out that you're doing some spying or some warrantless stuff. I want to tell people about it. No. That is illegal.
The feds dodge a Twitter appeal in the First Amendment case over user info disclosure. Now, this first of all, this headline and this event has been misrepresented in a lot of places, a lot of mainstream media, to have something to do with the Twitter files and have to do something to do with algorithmic manipulation and that sort of thing. That's not what this is about. This is about, this is a little bit bombshell. People inside Twitter have said, okay, look, there's all this negative press on both sides of the aisle. There's the political thing. Let's just step back from that and let's just disclose how many national security letters we have. Let's disclose how many people are being surveilled through our program, because that should, like, just telling you the number of people and the number of warrants that we've had to serve, that should be allowed, right? No, that's not allowed. That information is classified.
We're not talking about telling the people who are affected. We're talking about just a number.
Yeah.
Just saying it happened this many times, not allowed.
Or saying things like, our infrastructure has been co-opted and is being used to monitor some of our users.
Remember the old where they took the negative of that, where it was like, as long as this page is up, we haven't been.
Yeah, warrant canary.
But like, I don't think any company could post that anymore.
Right.
They would all be gone.
Yeah.
So the canaries are now useless. Over in the FCC, we've had a lot of new actions from the SEC and the FTC, but seems like things are not going to be, there's not going to be any sea changes there because they're not going to get their new leader.
Biden's FCC nominee withdraws their name. No.
Yeah, she was like, I'm not about all the harassment. It's taken too long. I'm out.
It is really fun to read, and fun, I mean horrifying, to read all the stuff that she's been through. It definitely takes a toll, but also that telecom companies are willing to spend that much money to basically harass a nominee for...
Not even the actual regulator yet, just the nominee.
But why not just, like, report all of that? I mean, how bad... I mean, if you're going to be in the government, you have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I mean, think about what they did to Donald Trump. You know, I mean, you're asking for it if you're going to be in the government. Just tell us about it. Just be like, hey, this is what Spectrum's doing. This is what their lobbyists are doing. Start a blog. I don't understand the whole, like...
You can't start a blog in some places. That'll be relevant later.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I don't think she lives in Florida. And the old the TikTok saga just continues to roll forward, and this is really just baby steps toward ultimately, it seems like we are going to ban TikTok outright.
Yeah. White House backs bill to strengthen U.S. powers to ban TikTok.
I know some people who are like low-key addicted to TikTok who this might put them over the edge.
I know a lot of people that are high-key addicted to TikTok, like half the population.
My favorite thing to do is to mentally substitute TikTok with Pokemon Go, because a lot of the hysteria, I mean, Pokemon Go, you know, its rise and fall was meteoric, but
People still play it? Is it still up?
no, it's not nearly as popular as it used to be, but at one time it was.
Oh, I remember, because there was apparently a gym near us, and you'd see people milling around with it all the time.
I don't think the feedback loop is the same. I think TikTok is way more dopamine.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do nearly as much to get it
Right,
out.
you don't have to leave the house.
Yeah.
And it never stops.
At what level of dopamine does it become regulated by the government?
That's what they're doing, right?
Scientific list.
I mean, that's where we're getting
Cocaine, TikTok.
But would they be doing this if it was an American company? Because I don't think so. Because Facebook kind of
Yeah.
Does the same thing. And YouTube's tried to mimic the whole shorts thing where it's like
Everybody-
you constant scroll.
and Spotify now. Everybody wants to be TikTok.
Ugh.
Everybody wants that addiction. Now it makes sense that, like, if all of a sudden, you know, like cocaine was legal, every drug company would start selling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. And we haven't seen.
Maybe Walgreens.
Why wouldn't they?
I don't know. They're not selling certain things that are legal in some places for reasons.
You know, I think cocaine reaches across political and religious divides.
Yeah.
Like everybody's into it.
Everybody that's in office now that's an octogenarian was probably really coked out of their mind in the 70s, which is the irony.
Was.
You think McConnell's heart could stand?
That's why he's in
He's
the
still
shape that he's in
alive.
now. It's just like,
Which we're so happy about here on the L1 show. As his constituents.
There's still a chance, Krista. I mean, I'm not saying somebody working in that hospital should be a hero here. But And this is not something that has happened in a long time. We had a lot of this during the pandemic as people got onto Zoom and they didn't know what they were doing and they were fumbling around. Apparently, the Federal Reserve still doesn't know what they're doing.
U.S. Federal Reserve Zoom conference canceled after porn bombing.
I like that you said it and then realized, But the craziest detail in this story is that there were 200 plus people on this call.
And they didn't understand how to set the security so that those people couldn't share their screens.
And yet,
So,
Federal Reserve.
yeah.
And the 200 people in a Zoom call. You know, most of those people are not going to say a word.
Well, but I mean, you're supposed to be able to observe what's
guess.
going on.
Yeah.
Well, I would say in the government, except, oh, wait, the Federal Reserve is not the government. They love to point that out. These are also, keep in mind, these are the people who are going to be in charge of the central bank digital currency. They can't operate Zoom, but they're going to operate our digital money.
I'm imagining a scenario like at the end of this call. You know how at the end of a call you'll be like, oh, thanks everybody, and everyone kind of just repeats it back. It takes like 10 minutes to get 200 people to all get on the same page and say, thanks everybody.
I was just thinking Federal Reserve. The word federal there is in the same sense as Federal Express.
As in not. And the Microsoft Activision deal is still hotly contested. Microsoft just keeps giving more and more concessions. But interestingly enough, Microsoft, in getting even a chance at this, had to disclose all of their third-party deals and make all these like, oh, everybody gets Call of Duty, whatever. And Sony was they were spearheading that whole thing. But now the Spider-Man meme once again has struck.
The FTC has told PlayStation it has to reveal its third-party exclusive deals. Sony's request to quash a Microsoft subpoena has been mostly rejected. It really is a case of the FTC saying, wait a minute, you have these exclusivity deals? That seems anti-competitive. And then Microsoft said, oh, this is a totally industry norm. And Sony sort of used the opportunity to file an amicus brief. And now everybody has to disclose their third-party deals, which is amazing.
Sony did not like that. They did limit the scope to 2021 and after or something like that, but that's still going to be some embarrassing stuff to learn.
Yeah.
And it's all anti-consumer.
Yeah.
So, people are going to see it and they're going to get angry, as they should. Here's a bit of an alarming headline because our nukes are kind of old and the launch tubes and everything, they're aging for sure. So it's perhaps disturbing that suddenly there's a renewed interest in making sure that they work.
U.S. Air Force awards a $75.5 million contract for world's largest wireless ad-hoc network.
The understanding I had from reading this was less about the nukes, but more about the facilities, like protecting them and keeping them connected. Because they said that because they're so sprawling and they're so in the middle of nowhere, there's a lot of sections where like you could have a breach or something, but they would have no way to call back to base.
Or repair it.
Yeah.
Or respond.
Right.
In the case of an antagonistic launch. I think that's the big thing here. It's like, hey, if they knock out DC, we still need to be able to, connect these in any way that we can.
Yeah.
So the mesh makes sense.
Yeah, I do get the feeling this is a fallback network for when the wired stuff doesn't work. Because it's weird. All these commercial vessels keep cutting internet lines all over the world. It's so strange.
Yeah, when those advanced persistent threat groups get in and shut it down, and then the other nukes start coming. Yeah, probably not a bad idea. Although it does, having a wireless network like that is going to introduce some security risks.
Yeah, that was my other takeaway was like,
I think they're doing kind of a minimal information exchange. Basically, it's like, yes, we're still alive. Here's our status, but still a little worrying.
Yeah.
Now this, I am almost positive this is not the first time this has been tried, right? Wasn't there one before? What state was it? Do you remember?
I think it was Florida.
Was it Florida?
What are they doing down there?
This is actually a watered down version of this, and I don't necessarily disagree with this one.
What?
It's insane. There's an aspect of it.
There's no
This
way.
is crazy.
You're not going to be able to justify that.
Yeah.
But this is the whole, it's like, let's roll something crazy out. Let
Yes.
people lose their mind. Let's wait a couple years because it's been 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point?
And then
This is way scaled back from the earlier version. It's still really odious, but it's way scaled back.
Let's get ready for some mental gymnastics here.
Florida bill would make bloggers who write about the governor register with the state. And the best interpretation of this for what DeSantis is saying, this is from Ron DeSantis, the guy who jailed the person for reporting stats on the infection rate of the thing, and used the police force as like a political thing, which is unacceptable. the best possible scenario for this, the best possible light for this is if you are paid by a political campaign to write political articles, you have to register and disclose that you are being paid by some campaign to write and do stuff.
But that's not a blogger. That's a lobbyist.
Yes, that's what they say in the bill, and that's what they say everything else is like if you're doing that. Now, if we want to write about, talk about how terrible of a human being he is for having that lady jailed for talking about stats and how that's not a way to run government, we would not be subject to that if that is an accurate interpretation of what it
We
says.
would absolutely be subject to it because we're not incorporated with a media group.
No. So what's happening here is that Ars Technica, being a left-leaning publication, has manipulated it. So I think you're absolutely right. I didn't read that particular detail. They're saying blogger, but it's lobbyist.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I agree with you now, for sure. Look how easy it is
Yeah, I know.
to nudge it over to the unacceptable.
Now, the first
But
version,
then they still have a big list of anybody who's ever been
Lobbyists?
even critical.
We should have a list of lobbyists.
But it won't always be lobbyists. Do you really think it'll just be lobbyists?
No, but it only applies if you take money.
It only applies if you take money and you don't work for a newspaper. If you take money and work for a newspaper, totally fine.
We should maybe do them too.
So they can have a nice big registry of all those people who are ever critical.
I mean, I could haul out press creds for some really obscure, very low circulation newspapers for things that have been written for those, but yeah, no, there are, and see, I don't know if there's a metagame that's being played here because the first version of this that came out a couple of years ago was just rando citizens. It was like,
Yeah,
I remember that one. That's why I assumed.
Yeah, if you're a rando citizen in Florida, then blah blah blah. They're trying to use the election commission. They're trying to skirt this in under an extension of election laws. Like this is an election law thing, and we think that if you are generating content, like I don't know if it's written this way, but a version of this that I would agree with is if you are being paid to generate political content of any kind, then that is about these candidates in Florida, then you should have to register somewhere.
But here's the thing, though. What about a Substack?
Yeah, what if it's like YouTube or something? It's like, oh, YouTube pays you, so obviously you need to be registered.
Like, what if I have a Substack and the opposition politicians come and like subscribe to my Substack or donate to my Substack a bunch?
Yeah.
There could be a loophole.
There's so many loopholes.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, you have to allow the individual, like if you have just an individual person, like if my mom was just really mad about stuff and she wanted to blog about it, and even if she makes...
I love that scenario. I'm imagining that world right now.
Yeah. And, if she's making $5 a month from YouTube, she's just, got the angry video where she's yelling about Mitch McConnell into the TV.
Into the void.
And, and that generates, that goes viral or whatever. And she makes money from that. She shouldn't have to register. That is totally okay. And that should be protected under the First Amendment.
Now, what if... Well, yeah, it should be. What if we took this a little bit further, and if you took money from a political organization to be a lobbyist, what if we then burned your home?
If it's not the quid pro quo, but the mobs, there's a legal word for like when the mob responds to something really egregious that you do, the mob can't be held accountable. That's that. So it's like, well, you did that thing. You incited the mob burns your house down.
It's crazy that there is enough precedent that there's a legal word for that.
It's just Latin.
Is it Vox Populi?
No.
I'm sure that's
someone in the chat will know.
It almost means mob justice. It shows up with the Latin phrase for mob justice, but it's not mob justice. It's like...
Moving on to Mississippi. Now, I did not know. I thought West Virginia was number 50. I don't know what list that they're using.
It's not us, though.
The last time I looked at a list like this, we were like 47 or something like that.
But it's not us, though.
But, I think like Arkansas or Alabama, West Virginia. Apparently, Mississippi, according to Electrek, is the worst. But Electrek does have a dog in this fight.
Yeah, this is definitely it's a little editorialized headline.
Little bias here. This has more to do with car dealerships and how that whole system is completely corrupt.
Mississippi, 50th place in everything, according to Electrek, passes a bill to stop EV dealers. This article from Electrek points out a lot of problems in Mississippi about how very rural it is and how very corrupt everything is.
But that's kind of a straw man attack.
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
They're doing it on purpose.
There's really not a lot coherent here other than this is a status quo bill. Like, this has to be.
Well, so Mississippi doesn't like the idea that, like, Tesla, for example, skips the dealership entirely. You buy online from Tesla, they deliver it to you. Everything is through Tesla, so there's no middleman. They really want the middleman.
Though in this case, they mentioned Tesla was specifically written into the bill as like Tesla can still operate in Mississippi.
Because probably so many people already have Teslas in Mississippi, and you would be absolutely screwing them.
Yeah.
I love looking into the history of this kind of thing because this happened, like Ford Motor Company is in large part why laws like this exist. Because they did really egregiously terrible things. Like, you think Elon Musk is insanely terrible. Henry Ford may have been just as bad, perhaps worse. And that's why you sort of want these things. The reason that, was it Montana? Montana wants pharmacies to be owned by pharmacists instead of corporations. It's the same kind of reasoning. It's like, we want local people or, individuals or small groups to own dealerships to hold them to account to make sure everything happens. Because when you have to deal with mama corporate, then it turns out that that's not usually in consumers' best interest. But it's been, like everything, it's sort of been twisted into something terrible. And
we have, like, just recently, the guy whose steering wheel fell off.
Yeah.
He had to pay $120.
Yeah.
And I was like, my steering wheel fell off. This is clearly your fault. Like, what could I have done wrong here to remove this? That's how it is. It's $120. Volkswagen. Yeah, $150 to find your missing child. Sorry.
We're sorry.
The dealership wouldn't have solved that one.
No, but
it just the scale is pretty unbalanced on the other side right now.
Yeah.
So Canada has pulled a trick right out of the Microsoft box. Yeah, think about how terrifying that is. And here's the thing about it. You cannot opt out of this. As a citizen, as a taxpayer, you must participate, and yet
Canada's tax revenue agency tries to terms of service itself out of a hacking liability. So in its terms of service, it says, you acknowledge and agree that we are doing the best we can to keep hackers out. And if we do get hacked, we're not responsible.
Some security researchers immediately audited that. They're not doing everything that they should. They're not only are they not doing everything that they can, which is what they say, they're not doing the basics.
Ooh.
Sorry if you're a Canadian taxpayer.
You think IRS.gov is any better?
No.
Yeah.
And this one, you might think, like, well, the Netherlands, what exactly did they have to offer in this situation? Lithography.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Very, very important lithography. So this is a huge coup for the U.S. military apparatus.
The dumbed down headline from Politico is the Netherlands to block export of advanced chips printers to China. That's how they explain EUV bulbs. It's chips printers.
But yeah, without this technology, and China cannot make this technology currently, and they probably have a hard time copying it too. So without this, their whole idea of let's do our own chips, it's going to be a tough one.
The technology, if you ever looked into what actually, how this thing actually produces EUV, it's insane. It's like a drop of tin into a vacuum chamber that's hit by a laser, which causes it to get a little bit bigger. And then they pull a tighter vacuum right after it's hit by the other laser or something. And they hit it with another laser that vaporizes it into plasma, which is that's a light source. And it's like, okay.
We're so far down the tech tree in the survival game at this point that you have to put so many specialized points to even get to that stage.
I don't want to think what the Factorio belts look like for EUV machines.
Yeah, China's going to have to farm a lot of experience to get anywhere near that. Let's hope they don't do that with a war. And Germany is following up. Once again, I feel like maybe the U.S. government's getting a lot of concessions from these people. Like, what did we offer up for all of this? But they are following along with the Huawei thing.
Germany planning to ban Huawei and ZTE from parts of 5G networks, according to this paper.
I wonder if they didn't even necessarily offer anything. They just gave them intelligence about here's what Huawei's doing.
Well, actually, we reported on this. It was 18 months ago. There was a commission in Germany that was investigating this, and their report was published. They were like, okay, we're coming out with the report, blah, blah, blah. That was redacted. Like the state stepped in and said, no, we're not publishing this. So that was either very good or very bad. It either said, this is everything the Americans said, or perhaps more disturbingly, it may have said, we don't see any evidence of this. They're just badly manufactured. They're not actually backdoors.
Well, they're even going so far as to yank them out and replace them. So they must have found something.
Yeah, they wouldn't spend the money.
Well, they might.
Just for optics, I guess, yeah. I guess money means nothing to these people.
Well, if it was badly made, it would be like a bridge. It's like, okay, we've accidentally used the wrong kind of steel with this bridge. We need to replace this bridge immediately. Oh, wait.
Yeah, that's not what we do.
Yeah.
Certainly not what China does.
We just keep using people. I love those social media posts where it's like, this is the bridge that has 1 million people going over it every day. And it's all rusted out. There's just a little sliver of metal left. And
It's moving up and down.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh.
Bridge can move a little bit.
Yeah. We had some of those in West Virginia. It wasn't great.
And once in a while, we get some, law enforcement working together to go after these cybercrime gangs. I love the names of the gangs in this.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
European police and FBI bust the international cybercrime gang. This is good. We're getting our stuff together for international cooperation.
One's something like evil.
Team Evil.
Yeah.
Oh, was it Evil Corp? Yeah.
That's from the hacker show that was popular for a while.
Evil Corp and then Doppel something.
It was
Doppelpaymer was the malware.
It was Freddie Mercury actor. He's really good.
But yeah, they got interesting. They come up with fun names.
Oh, I know who you're talking about now.
There's that
Mr.
hacker
Robot?
show. Yeah, Mr. Robot.
I didn't
There you
watch
go.
that, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you know what? I forgot to go back and read this one.
Baidu works round the clock to meet its ChatGPT-styled AI deadline and borrows Nvidia's powerful chips and other team members. So this article is not really super good, but it does
It's a paywall alternative.
It's some foreshadowing for how brokers and third-party buyers were set up to continue to buy Western chips like Nvidia's AI stuff so they could do this. But also, it's weird because last week we reported that the CCP said, no, we're not going to go headfirst into a ChatGPT style thing. But there are several firms inside China that are still working on ChatGPT, so it's very strange.
But Google also said that a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And look how fast they've turned their story around because ChatGPT is taking over the world.
And GPT-4 is supposed to launch this week, so we'll be hands-on with GPT-4 like while you're watching this.
Well, you know who won't be?
Yeah.
Certain people in Taiwan.
Taiwan suspects Chinese ships cut island's internet cables. One was a merchant shipping vessel, and the other one was a fishing vessel.
That immediately retreated into Chinese waters. It was like, bye. They didn't even get a chance to catch it.
Didn't deliver their load, the shipping vessel. So they're saying, hey, this is, basically a preview. They're testing and seeing what could they do during wartime.
Do we have the correct cables? Snip.
How many times it was like the last 5 years they've cut it? How many times? I don't remember the number in the article. It was high.
A lot, yeah.
It's like 70.
My fear is that this is being done to normalize the cutting behavior as prelude to when something bad really happens. You can't take this as an indicator that something bad has started. It's like, oh, they just cut the cables again. And it's like, oh, no, it's for real.
Also, there's an army moving in and no one can get out to let anyone know.
Well, I mean, we've got enough surveillance in the area. They might get like a 30-minute head start with that. I don't know.
But then I can't watch live updates of it on Twitter.
Yeah. Watching war in real time is both terrifying and fun.
It's bizarre. It's a bizarre timeline we live in.
Is there a way that I can save up some electricity in the basement for hard times? Because
what are you going to do?
I'd slowly go insane.
Now, I would say that Christopher Wray doesn't have a lot of goodwill or trust left in his bank. I think we've seen what he's about. But pretty easy to hit this one out of the park. Everybody wants to hear this.
FBI chief says TikTok screams of U.S. national security concerns. I'm always disappointed when it's like, all right, give me some specifics. And he's like, I can't.
They're bad. Just trust us.
I mean, that's probably true, but at least with Huawei, it's like...
There's actual evidence, yeah.
It's like, okay, if they were using that for this, I can go look for evidence of that myself because I've got some Huawei gear. And then I look at it and it's like, oh, that's weird. The bootloader is oddly complicated.
And if you've noticed that we try to refrain Krista from swearing for the first 10 to 15 seconds of these videos lately, that's because YouTube made some crazy policy changes. Really as crazy as the first 8 seconds, you're not allowed to curse, but after that, maybe okay. I think they still demonetize pretty hard, though.
Yeah.
And that was overwhelmingly unpopular.
YouTube reverses course on controversial swearing and monetization policy. Colorful language is now somewhat mostly kind of allowed, according to this article.
We're not going to tell you the exact rules, and you're going to get demonetized anyway.
But in reality, this channel is so obscure, they don't care. Join on Patreon and Flowplane, because we'll always be there.
The algorithm turned on us long ago.
Yeah.
We're not sure why, but we know it has.
Because we had the...
Well, not just that. It was way before that.
Yeah.
We encourage you to use your brain as opposed to just saying...
It's long format content, too.
Consume.
People like that quick scroll.
Consume.
And one other thing, if you are one of the blessed people who actually allow ads on these videos, thank you. They are going to make them possibly a little less horrible.
YouTube is killing the overlay ad format next month. Annoying banner ads that cover videos are getting the boot.
Hope you didn't need any subtitles there.
In the entire universe of those ads across all of YouTube, how many of those do you think anybody ever actually clicked on intentionally?
That's probably the reason.
Yeah. You're trying to scrub through and it's like, I hit the
I would
ad.
say 99% of the clicks were trying to get the X.
I think that YouTube should do what agencies have done, which is to just embrace the darkness of bilking advertisers out of advertising dollars. Like the advertising doesn't need to be effective. It just needs to be there.
Yeah, but advertising budgets across the board are getting cut.
Yeah.
So
YouTube's going to be more effective than most other kinds of advertising regardless. So.
yeah, but they're going to lose money. So they're trying to figure out a way to stop
Store.level1text.com.
Which doesn't help YouTube at all. No. The thing that really blew my mind about this news story, link, is that enough people still want cable for this to be effective.
Yeah.
Like, how are these people not also cutting the cord? Maybe because it's so cheap?
Local YouTube star sentenced to 5.5 years in order to forfeit $30 million in large-scale piracy case.
This might be like just the guy's lawyer really talking him up, but it was like this guy grew up like in the middle of nowhere with like nothing, and he made something of himself doing this business, and I was like, oh, I kind of feel bad for him now.
But the thing he made himself was a criminal.
Yeah. Well, it's his lawyer. His lawyer's defending him. But it did kind of work a little bit when I
came up hard, but I've really pulled myself up by the bootstraps, and now I beat women. What a beautiful story that is.
Ironically, that person probably wouldn't get 5.5 years.
Yeah, I'm sure the cable industry
yeah.
really leaned on that sentence.
There was also a passage in here where he talks about like, I realize now I'm wrong after watching this Disney movie. And I was like, did Disney stipulate that for you to say that in your statement?
Probably the mouse. Yeah.
They probably offered him a year off his sentence.
Yeah, it was very strange. It's like the last little bit of the article.
How about we're going to give you 3 months, you wear a Disney Plus t-shirt at the trial.
Yeah. Make sure you put that out in your statement so people feel better about it.
There's also got to be an aspect of his experience that he would not be comfortable talking about, I'm sure. But, he said that when he was growing up, his dad showed him how to make crack or something. And I'm sure that he knows somebody. There was somebody in that circle that probably went away for murder and probably for less than 5 years.
You probably get personal recognizance for cooking crack these days. Well, think about the woman. Okay, the woman last week drove her car into a Popeyes because they didn't give her any biscuits.
Rational.
Personal recognizance.
Yeah.
The same day she got out. This guy stole cable. He's going to go away for 5
years. That's why he shouldn't have done that. But I'm also kind of like.
At the end of, it's like he gave the money back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not willingly.
Well, 5 years seems a little excessive for copyright violation. come on. That's
a pro tip, though. Pro criminal tip is you always want to like siphon a little bit off into cash and like zip, like vacuum,
return it.
Vacuum pack that. No. Vacuum pack it and like hide it somewhere.
Probably not cash, probably precious metals.
Well, something that you can, that might be hard to turn back because now precious metal sales are.
Oh, yeah.
You have to sell tiny bits of it at a time. Better than nothing, I guess.
You know, the dude that we know also has to register, and he's real salty about that. Like he's on the radar where it's like, oh, he can't buy and sell precious metals anymore because he used to do a lot of that, kind of off books.
I don't actually know who that is.
The guy at the school?
Yeah, no.
Oh.
The he's here.
Oh. I know who you're talking about. The chat's lost right now, but
Yeah,
I know who he's talking about.
But you'll just be like, that guy. They get real salty if he doesn't follow report, even if it's 0.
This is we're jumping ahead a little bit here to a different headline. This is the security section, where we talk about like leaks and so forth. Or maybe no, is this the
This is
social
social.
media?
We did social and
Okay.
government this round.
Right, but this is also a crossover to AI. AI's in everything now, and it gets really hard to categorize.
Well, it feels a little. I think it's different from crypto in that it seems like it's going to be more relevant, but it feels a little bit like the crypto bandwagon where everyone was like, "I got to put blockchain in the name of my product."
I can't wait for the AIT.
Yeah. It was. Well, we'll talk about that because there's a story about that. But Meta, spoiler alert. There's they have a new AI. Oh, that was exciting, but there's a problem.
Meta will keep releasing AI tools despite leak claims. So Meta, in their press release a couple of weeks ago, I think we reported on this, said, "Oh, we're running headfirst into AI. We don't sure that makes sense for society." But behind closed doors, they were like, "Full speed ahead. We got to. If we hit this out of the park, we are relevant again."
So now it's been leaked, and other people have it. That's the llama model. But they say, we don't care, we're doing it anyway. Because what else can they do?
Yeah.
They have to have it. They are already irrelevant from the metaverse stumble, and now they have to have something.
I saw an ad today that was like, it was for dog food, and it was like in the dog verse, donate food to a dog in the dog verse, and then we will donate a bag
Is
of
it
dog
a virtual
food.
dog?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the context of it all was,
The
but they
whole
have some sort of virtual reality for dogs.
Dear marketing agency, the reason we're going into VR is because the world is too bleak. Don't bring the bleakness of the real world into VR.
It was odd.
Sincerely,
Odd ad.
literally everyone.
Well, Krista, if you would like to get Rue into the dogverse, it's going to cost less than ever.
Meta is cutting prices for its VR headsets. They cut like $500 off the price of one of them.
Yeah, the flagship one is down 500. The other one, not so much.
It was like $50. The other one was.
Yeah, a little more than 50. 60, I guess. But yeah, that 500 off the, what was that thing called? MetaQuest Pro.
Speaking of, that's a sign of the collapse, the price cuts, blah, blah, blah. Did you know one of the monitors here died? And so it's like, okay, I got to shop around for a replacement. And the person wanted a TV instead of a monitor. And it's like, wow, this TV that has all these features is like $450. And it's a huge.
Yeah, they overstocked from
Yeah.
the chip debacle. Right? Yeah. You know what else is a big sign of the collapse? Extreme fear.
Oh, they literally put it at the top of the website. Like they should really just put it in big red letters. How freaked out should you be today? Extremely fearful.
Today is a rough day. We'll talk about that actually tomorrow.
In the business.
In the
We're
collapse
recording this
section.
on a Friday, but
And WhatsApp a lot. So the EU has these new rules coming up. It's like, no end-to-end encryption. And God bless these companies, as horrible as they are. They step up to the plate and they say, we will leave. Will they really? I don't know, but I like that they're saying it.
Reuters has the headline, WhatsApp agrees to be more transparent on policy changes.
This was the
EU
wrong
says.
article.
Yeah, well, in this article, it mentions how WhatsApp is not going to do the end-to-end encryption, or they are going to do end-to-end encryption. They will refuse EU orders to weaken their end-to-end encryption, which is great. But they did provide a number of concessions other than that one. But that one was one that they were not willing to concede on.
But this is the one about how they just keep changing the policies and not telling anybody. They're going to stop doing that. Yeah.
The big policy change is that they will report things like your network and your IP address and probably your MAC address, like the Wi-Fi network that you're connected to. So if they're surveilling somebody, they might not be able to get the messages. There's still a lot of data they can get.
And if you get phishing emails and stuff like that, and if you're smart, you float over and look at who is this really from before you click on it, and you see this domain name that's like a string of numbers.com, and you think, why don't we just go and find out who registered that? Why isn't that a thing? Well, it's because of this, but it seems like that party's over.
Sued by Meta, Freenom halts domain registrations. Why? Because just any rando could sign up for domain names, and it was causing a lot of headaches for everybody.
oops.
It's actually kind of good that Meta were the ones to step up to deal with this, but it's really an anti-spam measure.
Yeah.
And anti-phishing and malware and stuff like that. I mean, you have to have a domain in order to, do your things. So
If you're North Korea, this would be a very effective and cheap way to create chaos for everybody, though. It's just free domain name registrations.
This is the story.
They're too busy firing stuff into the ocean. They can't be bothered with that.
They can multitask. This is the one I thought I was introing before.
WhatsApp would not remove end-to-end encryption for UK law, says Chief. The EU was eyeing that as well.
So yeah, I really hope they follow through with that.
Yeah.
Oh.
It worked for Facebook in Australia, kinda. It brought them back to the table at least.
It's like only a stupid person that doesn't understand at all how this works would even want such a thing.
And this is maybe my favorite story of the week. And the lesson here is be careful how you censor. Be careful how you force people to do things, because eventually it will be turned on you.
Comedian sues Ocasio-Cortez for blocking him on Twitter after he catcalled her outside the U.S. Capitol.
Now, he was doing this on purpose. He was designing it so that she would get angry and react. She did. She did exactly what he wanted. He was making fun of her, calling her a big booty Latina.
He was being kind of nasty. It wasn't very funny, but
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, comedian is like, I guess, his self-styled. But what he was wanting to do was get blocked on Twitter, which he did. And then he used the same rule about Trump not being able to block people on Twitter. He says, you're a politician. You have to listen to me.
I do wonder, is he a constituent though? Because Trump technically all 50 states. I don't know that she'll bother fighting
in
it.
New York. I don't know if he lives there. Says she settled with a former Brooklyn assemblyman who would be a constituent, and she had to restore him. So this is kind of the same thing.
Right. But I don't know if this guy counts for that.
But
We'll soon know.
Yeah.
But the proper thing for her to do if she doesn't like this is to leave Twitter. Because she doesn't need to be on Twitter.
Right. Or have her staffer deal with it so she doesn't have to see it.
Yeah, whatever.
But she would make so much less political or campaign contributions if she left.
That would be terrible. And over in China, they are very serious about restricting live streams. Over the years, it's just the noose has tightened more and more. First, no bananas. Then there was no sleeping, right?
Yeah.
Your clothing had to be a certain, not much nudity. There was another weird one. Do you remember what that was? They just kept coming up with more and more because people kept,
finding ways to push it. Yeah.
They would make the stream spicy in a way the CCP had planned for, so ban more things. You got to wonder how long this one's going to last.
China has banned women from modeling lingerie and online shopping live streams, so men are doing it instead.
Also, what a minefield this would be in America.
Yeah.
Just the whole discussion would be a disaster. But in China, they don't really play that game yet. These guys look pretty fabulous. Huh. With the masks, it is tough to tell. Great collarbones on those gals.
Odd.
And apparently it's real popular.
I guess, I think that, Instagram kind of tried to do this too, where they had, people streaming and then you could buy stuff directly. I think that's really popular in China, but it hasn't taken off in the same way here.
Huge in China.
Well, that's, go ahead.
Well, some of the people in the article said the reason they go to those streams is because everything is cheaper, but I don't understand how that makes sense. How do you make money if your stuff is, because maybe you don't have to do the retail.
IKEA has done that before where if you here is the IKEA catalog and this is the IKEA, you're looking at a living room, let's say.
Oh, and it's got, the little, buy this, buy that, buy that.
And the IKEA has totally done the thing where it's buy the entire living room as you see it and you get 15% off. And it's easier for them to deal with. And it's you get the couch and the table and the bookcase and the thing. And then it's boom, that's in your space. I'm surprised that it's not more popular. I mean, Ethan Allen was the Kmart brand in the Sears and Roebuck days. And then people saw it in the Sears catalog and they're like, oh, I want this in my living room because somebody, creatively did interior decorating for them. And then all of a sudden.
And studio lighting.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden everybody was like, oh, we need the collection. And then all of a sudden it was a high-end brand and they were making higher end stuff.
You think if you and I throw on some negligee, we'll sell some KVMs? Maybe some t-shirts?
I think that if we wouldn't even need the negligee. I mean, we could just,
But why skip the opportunity?
Look how happy those guys are.
Product placement, Taco Bell.
Store.level1text.com.
We didn't get a goodbye last week, Kristen.
Oh, yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Bye. Hello. Welcome back to Links with Friends. Today's March 15th, and we're doing business and security stories to share with your friends.
And the big story that went down last Friday, which is today for us, which is still playing out. I added this article this morning, and I thought, oh, that'll be a juicy one. Well, it's already out of date.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we have now, the end game has happened.
Silicon Valley Bank drops another 60% and is halted Friday as it's shut down by regulators. Yep. Oh, it's all gone. And if you had more than $250,000 there, which a lot of people did, the SEC's already saying,
Silicon Valley Bank was a venture capital bank. And, if you had a venture capital type of deal, you wanted to do a startup or whatever, they would do your banking for you. They would take risks, obviously. And so now that's just not going to happen because they put out some really bad numbers. They were like, well, we can't give out our numbers yet because things are bad. And all the venture capital people were like, oh, let's take our money out. They had an emergency call and the guy was like, please stop.
Please don't do that. Everybody's panicking.
Everything's going to be fine unless you keep taking money out. Well, guess what happened?
Uh-huh.
yeah. And FDIC is going to have to step in. So that's like a 6-month process.
This seems like vaguely familiar to another scenario that happened also in the 20s.
Wait, you mean the 20s?
The 1920s.
Oh,
It runs on the banks.
Well, Bear Stearns. This happened
Recent history too.
shortly. Yeah. And the other bank that was the big news before the Silicon Valley Bank was Silvergate because they were a crypto bank.
Oh, everybody expected that one. Crypto bank Silvergate to shut down amid crisis. Boop.
FTX brought them down.
Sadhorn.mp3.
Imagine all these banks taking these risks.
I don't understand how FTX looked attractive, but Magic the Gathering Online did not.
Well, one's a little more niche. Only marginally.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think we went up that, as they call it, the wall of worry with crypto, and we got to the top and everybody was like, all right, we're on board. FTX, that sounds good. We're not even questioning it anymore. Let's just get with it. And then roller coaster goes down.
Line goes down.
Also, that was not just crypto failing. That was massive fraud.
Yeah.
That was a small group of people making some really stupid decisions. Although finance kind of describes it.
I'm pretty sure you're describing the short system as well, like short sellers.
What if you shorted FTX? And we continue to get the poor headlines. This is the collapse section, and like the tech companies, things are still not good. The massive layoffs have slowed, but we still have bad news every week.
Google tells its employees that fewer of them will get promotions to senior roles. I really hope that they're doing this by recanting all of the projects that they've sunset over the years. Most recently, Google Groups. It's like, we're going to retire that. It's like, what about all the information in Google Groups? Set it on fire. We don't need it.
Just let an AI go in and peruse it, but otherwise, we're not looking for it.
They mentioned that there was a lot of like middle manager bloat. So I guess, are they trying to get rid of that? Sounds like.
And not only is it bad that like most of you aren't going to get promoted, but the ones that do get promoted, you're going to be managing a ton more people.
Yeah.
So your job is going to suck that much more.
Fabulous.
But you will have one. And if you're working at Meta, not as guaranteed.
Facebook parent Meta plans thousands more layoffs as soon as this week.
Yikes.
So probably 5 p.m. at Friday. Probably right after we get done shooting this, it's going to be like, here you go.
That metaverse pivot just did not work, did it? I think this is conclusive evidence.
Well, that and, lowering the price of all the headsets 6 months after they launched.
When they bought Instagram, it was only 13 people. It was $1 billion company-ish for 13 employees. A lot of outsourcing. I wonder if they're trying to get that back desperately. It's like, we could run all of Meta with 13 people.
I mean, I could see needing a few more than that, but certainly not the numbers that all these companies have ballooned to.
Well, they outsource a lot of the stuff, right? Like the moderation and all that. It's
Yeah.
not really Facebook employees. So
That's so toxic. Who else? You don't want to touch that with your stuff.
start making the managers do that. They'll leave on their own.
We really need nuclear power, but we need to outsource the uranium handling to people that don't matter.
And we have Amazon is taking some drastic steps. Now, again, CNN will blame this on the Amazon business model. But if we look at where it's happening, New York, Seattle, San Francisco, we've seen other headlines like Walmart last week where the local politics might be weighing heavily on this.
Amazon closing some of its cashier-free stores. This is the CNN Business article. You should read it. It's pretty neutral. Blames macroeconomic conditions. There's a blog out there. Somebody that was I think the manager or the something for one of these wrote a blog article about the closure of their store, and it is fascinating. The theft was apparently just rampant. The stuff could not keep up with whatever people were doing, and people would walk in and walk out and not have any idea that things didn't register correctly. So it doesn't work as advertised, one, and two, just wasn't that popular. People do not care.
Did you see, I think this happened when they first announced it, SNL did a skit where it was like, you don't have to register or do anything like that. And like all of the white characters in the skit were like, that sounds great. And then all the black characters in the skit were like, I don't trust that. I don't think that I'll be allowed to walk out. It was dark, but it was funny.
Well, they were allowed. It didn't work out for Amazon. The other thing that is not working out for Amazon is an astonishing show of opulence during a time when you are cutting your workforce and destroying the souls of your employees.
Amazon pauses construction on its second headquarters in Virginia. There's an artist rendering there.
It drives me crazy in these architectural renderings where they put all these full-grown trees, and I'm like, your building is not going to look like that when it's done. It's just going to be a sad gray hellscape.
I also think that
Because no one ever invests in landscape.
whoever designed this played a little bit too much SimCity 2000. That looks kind of a lot like the Acropolises in SimCity 2000.
It looks a little bit like the turd emoji too.
I was just about to say,
Yeah.
It looks like somebody took the turd emoji and stretched it vertically.
Yeah.
Or it came out of DALL-E and you said, take the SimCity 2000 Acropolis and imagine it as the turd emoji. And that would be
what it generated.
Yeah.
Well, it ain't going to happen yet. Things will have to turn around quite a bit for Amazon, probably, to resume that.
I think it said 25,000 employees would work there. I was like, is that just office workers?
Remember they had the big plan where there was like an apiary inside and you could bring your pets, and that was crazy.
It's like,
There
what?
was one floor just for dogs. And it had like special carpet that they could poop on.
Tell me you have more money than sense without telling me you have more money than sense.
Well, they don't have that money anymore.
Yeah.
And Zoom, they are really, really having problems, and maybe the problems are in management. They're a little hush-hush about this, but they've sent the ultimate message.
Zoom abruptly fires its president, Greg Toom. This is after 15% of its workforce has been laid off.
There was also, it mentioned someone else in this article who like cut their salary down to nothing.
It's bad times at Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom was artificially propped up by the pandemic,
Yeah.
obviously. Now, there's still a lot of courts and stuff using Zoom, though. I can't see how they're not turning a profit there. They obviously tried to grow during that time when they should have just been like, all right, let's keep it lean. Let's prepare for when the world goes back to being sane. This was an updated article. The update makes it much less impressive. But I wonder, like, did Intel like this being exciting at first, or was this bad for them? I don't know, but it's not as great as it sounded in the beginning.
The Tom's Hardware article is Intel tapes out chips at 1.8 nanometers and 2 nanometer production nodes updated. So this is the 18A and the 20A process. But really, this is just Intel saying, we got the tooling operational. It's not actually usable yet.
They are moving forward, but this is not a giant step. Probably not deserving of an exciting article. They need some good news, though.
Don't we all?
Today's not the day for it, I don't think.
Yeah.
And Qualcomm wants to further change how we deal with phone SIMs.
Qualcomm wants to replace the eSIM with iSIMs. It has the first certified system on chip.
So instead of the little card chip thing, we went to being directly on the board. Now they're saying, don't even waste our time with that. It's going to be right on the processor.
So like TPM. Well, AMD's implementation of TPM in their CPU.
If you want to switch your phone from wife phone to mistress phone, it's going to be a software thing. You're not going to have to change the chip every time. And Apple, they, how do you deal with the software or the hardware refresh cycle when the world is falling apart? You can't do every year anymore, right? Apple says, hold my beer.
Apple's spring surprise could be the early arrival of the M3 MacBook Air in a 15-inch form factor.
It's only been a year.
Do you think part of like the reason they can do that is because like college students who are coming into school and like a lot of them want MacBooks?
Yeah, and also the 15-inch form factor has been really sought after.
Yeah.
A lot of people want the 15-inch size. And if it's light and thin, you notice the size of the screen less. Mm-hmm. When your laptop feels like a brick and you open it, it's like, I really need a smaller laptop.
And carrying it across campus, yeah.
Getting it stolen on campus.
Yeah.
Well, Nvidia had a bit of a faux pas this week.
Nvidia releases fix for GeForce driver causing CPU spikes up to and including the point of blue screen of death. The headline conveniently leaves that out. But both Nvidia and AMD have been releasing things that are on the struggle bus in terms of stability.
So this would affect you after you played a game and exited the game. Your CPU would do weird stuff. They say they fixed it. And the video card, well, the chip companies in general, they are maybe not crazy about this whole U.S. versus China thing. That is
We're just trying to make a profit.
Yeah. We really
don't
don't
want to
care.
pick a side.
We don't care about the politics. We just care about money.
Nvidia and AMD grapple with the latest U.S. curbs on China's InSpur. This is a Reuters article. This is really a follow-up to stuff that started in September. The State Department said, we're not going to grant export licenses. This is China buying U.S. stuff, not U.S. importing stuff. And in September, the State Department said, we're not going to grant licenses as freely for you to be able to buy stuff. And also, companies on the sanction list, basically no go. So Nvidia and others said, okay, that sounds good. But it turns out they've still been selling a lot of volume to subsidiaries. And the State Department got kind of pissed off when they figured out one of the subsidiaries was the exact same address as one of the sanctioned companies. And as a result of that, InSpur and others have been blacklisted.
They kind of just do what they want, don't they? And you know who else does what they want? And time after time, we see the outrage, the seething anger, deservedly so, that people have towards HP. And yet people still keep buying HP printers, it seems, because they do not care. They will keep going.
HP outrages printer users with firmware update suddenly bricking third-party ink. Where paging Lena Khan, Miss Lena Khan, you're needed on the blue courtesy
She's
phone.
just crying because her phone is just constantly beep, 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 beep.
We just learned about their subscription service that you were foolish enough to buy into that. They would turn you off just for canceling your subscription. But now, even if you're not part of the subscription service, if you are not buying their ink, you are not printing.
The ink that previously worked suddenly stops working. I think that is, doesn't that like property rights in this country? Isn't that property rights like one of the most important things? They're interfering with a commercial transaction between you and a third party that they have no right to.
That's the new trend. Like,
Everything's a subscription service. Yeah.
It's in the Constitution. Must be evil. Let's not have that anymore. Now, this is a weird, I don't know what Daring Fireball is. I think this guy's personal blog. But this is interesting because this guy is, I think he's Native American, and he deals a lot with their IT. And he learned something amazing when trying desperately to run some kind of internet to his tribal people.
Roku doesn't support IPv6, and it might be a big deal. It turns out, yes, in fact, it is a big deal. And good job, John Gruber, because you've just shown that Roku does not care. This thing is horrible.
So he had to do wireless internet. Eventually they got fiber, but while they were doing the wireless internet, just for cost saving, they only did IPv6, and Roku does not work. And he says, much like us, John Gruber sounds like a guy I would hang out with. He hates Apple and Disney. He says, I hate Apple and Disney so much. And yet, despite that hatred, I was encouraging people to get Disney Plus and Apple TV because we couldn't get Roku to work. Talk about not planning for the future.
It's probably one of those problems where the software stack required to support the IPv6 stack is too complicated for the anemic CPU that the Roku chose for their players. Like the CPU is just too crappy. It's like, oops, we cut the cost too much. Now all those Rokus will have to be replaced.
But in the grand scheme of Roku's, like they don't care about these people.
Yeah, that's an edge case. They're like, yeah, whatever.
It was probably like 50 people at most.
Yeah.
So, and you know, we get the mea culpa. I hope this cost them a lot of money.
Yeah.
VW says, sorry for the child carjacking fiasco that we reported on last week, and they're going to make the safety service free.
Asterisk, safety service free for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then you have to pay.
5 years.
Is it 5? Whatever. Still, not full time.
Yeah.
Not forever.
And that only because they knew they had to do something.
Right. So what happened was a woman, it sounds like she just got like carjacked in her own driveway.
Oh, right. You weren't here last week.
Oh, was this an update? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right. The detective called.
There might be people who didn't see it last week.
The detective called and was like, we need this. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry.
You got to subscribe.
You have to pay $150.
So the deputy was like, oh, okay, I guess.
They paid it, but it took 5 hours.
Yeah.
And then the kid was found somewhere else during that time.
Jeez.
And we got a little bit of a follow-up to Microsoft. This is kind of the same story, but they're just giving more and more concessions. They are desperate for Activision.
They're at the bargaining stage of the stages of grief.
Yeah.
Microsoft tells UK it will license Call of Duty to Sony for 10 years. And this is part of their, try to make everybody happy. The European Union and the US regulators like, please let us merge.
Sony countered and they were like, oh yeah, you might license it to us, but what if you make our version crappy? And then Microsoft guaranteed parity. So if we have, in the next 10 years, we'll get another console generation in the next 10 years, right?
Yep.
If one is way better than the other, Call of Duty will have to be nerfed on one of them to make them exactly the same. And if you've ever dreamed of being an unpaid tester for Microsoft, it's easier than ever.
Microsoft will now preview the future of Windows with their new Canary channel.
There are a lot of people in the comments of this article who are really excited about this, and I was like, why?
The start menu is just going to get more terrible.
But they might roll it back.
The naming convention is really apt, though. I mean, this is the coal mine.
Yeah.
All the canaries are dead. What do we do now?
Roll it out. It'll be fine.
And Microsoft is, everybody wants to flex their AIs these days. They're stealing an idea from Nvidia.
Microsoft unveils its own version of RTX Super Resolution, and this is for videos on the web that are played in the Edge browser, streamed at a resolution of 720p or lower.
You have to turn it on. I think you might have to get one of those preview builds or whatever, but you can try it out if you want to. Not a bad idea. But this might be a bad idea, because I don't think anybody is asking for this, and as The Verge points out, there's going to be an ad in here at some point.
Yeah.
For sure.
Microsoft is testing file recommendations in Explorer. It's like, oh, you're in this folder. Would you recommend this folder? No. I will organize my files the way that I see fit. I don't need files randomly showing up at the top of my file list.
So Outlook has a thing when you go to attach a file, it'll like pull up the list of files you've recently interacted with. And I'm like, I could see that being useful. But that's not what that's going to be.
No. And these also, I think in the first iteration at least, these are all only your cloud files.
Yeah, of course.
So
yeah, because they want you on the cloud.
Right, exactly.
I bet for younger generation who aren't used to file systems, though, that will be absolutely great, because then they don't have to think about where they put stuff.
If you're an iPhone user, it's just like, oh,
yeah.
I'm comfortable with this. Take all of my files and look
just put them wherever, because I don't understand how the directory works.
And of course, the AI is the big story of the year so far. And Microsoft moved very quickly and they put the ChatGPT and all their stuff. Did it work? Apparently so.
Microsoft says Bing has crossed 100 million daily active users. The company released a progress update a month and it launched the new Bing with a chatbot AI.
But what were the numbers before?
Like, not great.
Yeah,
I guarantee you there's Microsoft Bing product managers that are just crying on the floor of their office.
My job is saved.
There's also the fact that Windows 11 makes it a nightmare to try to get any other browser to open when you're clicking on links.
Yeah.
My favorite new thing is whenever Edge updates, you open it and it's like, I'm going to do all this stuff. And it used to be that you could Alt F4 and then just run it again and it would stop that nonsense. But they now listen for and ignore Alt F4. But you can still run a second copy of Edge. So when Edge starts that nonsense, just click the icon again and then you can
It's almost like you just shouldn't use Edge. You're describing don't using Edge.
Well, when you first install Windows, you got to
Yeah.
go download something else and you click Edge and it's like, oh, I'm not on the internet. But if you run Edge a second time, then you're on the internet and you can go do stuff while it's doing whatever nonsense in the background.
What is your purpose? You download Firefox and or Chrome.
Well, this is perhaps more evidence that Microsoft is courting the iPhone user.
Yeah.
Because they're dumbing down all their garbage to work with it. And
Microsoft announces iMessage support on Windows with several limitations.
so you can't do video or media. You can only do messages
I think it said to history, like it wouldn't go very far back.
or group chats. You can't
Yeah.
do group chats.
I really wish this worked properly on LANs and not via the cloud because it's off-putting when it's very, very outdated.
But then they couldn't mine it for data.
Yeah. I really like KDE Connect. Like the KDE Connect has got good support in all GNOME and all the other desktop browsers. And it's surprising that the Linux experience is better than the Windows experience for something that's so superficial.
Well, Google is also desperate for you to subscribe to them. They want to offer you more and more features.
Google expands its VPN access to all Google One members and rolls out a dark web report feature. So this is capturing your data. It could be used for analysis, but Google apparently is finding that a lot of networks are filtering traffic in weird ways. And this is their attempt to do an end run around that. Like DNS filtering or traffic shaping or, hey, we noticed you're using Netflix. Let's make sure Netflix or YouTube doesn't run well. Whereas with this, it will fix it. Because VPN.
And Spotify, add them to the list of companies that are trying to beat TikTok.
Spotify's biggest update in over a decade includes quote-unquote entirely new home feed, CEO says. I'm surprised this article doesn't use AI because Spotify's press release in this was AI.
I don't think I've gotten this update yet. Or
It's only the mobile app.
I have the mobile app because I use it to listen to music in the car and I didn't notice it. So maybe I didn't get it yet, or maybe it's not that noticeable.
But yeah, there's going to be more visual stuff, more video-based stuff, which is not what I'm looking for on Spotify.
No, I just want my playlist so I can listen to music in the car.
And apparently, discovery of new songs is going to be TikTok style, where it's like using that algorithm to try and
Find similar. Their algorithm's kind of hit or miss for finding stuff I like. Anyway, I find.
yeah,
but-
because you can't downvote.
yeah,
Drives
you
me
can't tell it I don't
insane.
want this. Yeah.
Drives me insane. I mean, you can on certain playlists, but it's very limited. And it's like, well, why? Why can I not lock out the things that I hate? It doesn't make any sense. Escape from Tarkov. That's a fun game. We were just so bad at it.
Yeah.
We
You were
tried
the best at it, I feel like, because you had a pretty good, like, sizable amount. I reached a point where I was just playing with the pistol every round because I was dying too much.
Well, they reset it every so often, so you get to start over. But it was even then rife with cheating, and that remains a problem. They have a novel solution, maybe.
Russian game developer bans and doxes 6,700 cheaters. Fun times.
Yeah, they gave receipts for all the people who were cheating, so you can look up their username.
That's a great move.
Yeah, I saw there was someone else like who said that they worked for another game developer, and they're like, I wish we would do this.
And this is a story we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks. The Dahl books have been censored and then uncensored and then censored with footnotes. But because we live in a dystopia where you don't actually own the things that you buy, some versions are still censored.
Roald?
I actually don't. I thought it was Ronald. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
I thought it was Roald.
Roald?
That sounds right.
Roald Dahl ebooks force censored versions on readers despite backlash. So if you bought the ebook version, you got the latest edition, which has changes. And some people are saying, I didn't authorize this to change. Why did this change? Rightly so.
Not the same book, is it? Down the memory hole we go.
This is just, I feel like every week we do more stories like this, and I'm like, man, I should really get more copies of physical media just so I have a record for myself.
Or just download the file to your device.
Yeah.
But like we talked about this with Spotify, I'm so locked in with Spotify now. It would take me forever to rebuild that library of MP3s.
Well, see, some of the stuff I listen to too, it's like, good luck ever finding that anywhere else.
I wonder if someone has written a utility that as you listen to things on your playlist, it also saves a copy, because that'd be handy.
Well, their app does that, but you would still lose it.
Yeah.
And I think they got some kind of DRM on there that
Saves it to MP3.
you would have to stream it in real time.
I'm sure there's a plugin.
And Netflix, they are weighing in on the whole EU thing. The EU telecom companies are like, "Oh, we're so poor. You have to pay us to use our traffic, even though that's our business model." That's weird. Netflix has a sane response.
Netflix fights attempt to make streaming firms pay for ISP network upgrades. They're saying, okay, well, why don't we just not sell to your customers?
The balkanization of the internet. It's coming. We're going to get it. I hope American internet is best internet.
It absolutely will be. USA. USA.
I think we're going to see an unholy alliance between like Spectrum and Disney, and I think Spectrum will hold
Don't even speak that into existence.
all of their they'll hold all their customers captive. So it's like only the Disney services run properly on Spectrum.
I'm surprised it's not already happening. It might be already happening.
You're right. We should just invest more in physical media.
It feels like with the whole YouTube Spectrum shenanigans and the whole like Steam media server caching shenanigans that some of that is already happening.
Maybe Elon Musk will be our savior and we'll have a satellite cloud where we can be free.
It is really insane how many people are buying the Elon Musk. It's not just personality, cult of personality. That is people that are in BFE that are fed up with literally every other option.
A lot of my neighbors who live farther down, like there's no internet further down our road, and a lot of them are on Starlink.
Go ahead.
He's not the savior we need, but is he the one we deserve?
Probably. I mean, one of the people that I know with Starlink has had it almost since the public beta. And in the beginning, they were getting like 200 down and more than 50 up. And now they only get like 30 or 40 down and I think it's like 10 up. And they got one of the letters that's like, you're in a congested area. The price is going to go way, 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 way up. And they're still like, this is the best thing ever. There is no other option. And it sucks that the price is going up, but I'm still happy with this. And that's really telling about how little the options are. And these
again, it's monopolized to the point like
these incumbent companies absolutely did this to themselves. They deserve every bit of this.
No, let's just give them more taxpayer dollars.
Another company that probably deserves a little bad karma is Amazon. But I don't know if they were wrong in this one. I think this is people who were expecting something that was not promised to them.
Amazon worker loses bid for California class action over remote work expenses. You work from home? You want Amazon to pay for that? No.
Now, the judge didn't actually smack this down on the merit of it. He said, I went through your list that you gave me of class action people, and I see that some of them were paid for their internet access. So this has no merit. And the lawyer was like, I will just take those people out and do the whole thing.
It was like
again.
500 out of 6,000 people. So it does seem like it's inconsistent, at least, whether or not you could get your internet paid for by the company.
Also creates a little bit of legal churn for those lawyers.
Yeah.
Kind of a perfect situation for them, unfortunately.
Can you imagine having to go through a list of 6,000 people and like audit all their crap for their home offices for this lawsuit?
Well, the judge didn't do it. His aides did it.
Still, what a mind-numbing task.
And Binance has benefited greatly from the FTX fall. They keep getting more and more market share because where else are you going to go? But now, I don't know if I would keep my money there because it seems like the crosshairs are going to be focused solely on them.
Texts from crypto giant Binance reveal plan to elude U.S. authorities. That's not good that there's a record of that.
So Binance.us was apparently created just to avoid this whole like US regulatory thing. And they're like, what we'll do is we'll do Binance.us. It'll be different. We'll keep it separate and we won't mingle the two. They mingled. They mingled heavily.
And they probably shouldn't have phrased it exactly that way because that sounds kind of criminal.
Yeah, there were some messages that were...
It's like, we're earnestly trying to comply with navigating this complex international web. That's not what they said.
Yeah, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but what they said was, let's do Binance.us to get around the regulators.
Yeah.
So you don't want to phrase it like that. Use code words. And here's we've seen maybe 10 billion examples of this, but this is maybe the most stark example of why there needs to be something that happens if you file a false DMCA claim. How many false DMCA claims have we seen that just cause havoc and nothing ever happens?
How fake copyright complaints are muzzling journalists of the BBC this time, it turns out. So it turns out there's a commercial interest in just spamming people. It's like, oh, they'll publish a story, backdate it, and then send a takedown notice, and then it's like, okay, we'll take it down.
So, and this is stuff that's uncovering like bank fraud and that type of stuff. And so what they do is like, oh no, we don't want people to know that. So they get the story taken down with the MCA, and it works every time. And they're just faking it.
Yeah, literally just backdating some text.
I mean, the MPAA would never do that, but they could.
Especially once that infrastructure's in place. They wouldn't just send sweeping takedown notices without considering. It's like, I would like to have a movie blog that talks about blah, blah, blah. No, you're not.
You like give a bad review to our movie, we must remove you.
Yeah.
They would never pirate their own content so they could argue that there's too much piracy for their content. They would never get caught doing that. And here's a terrifying reality of this is kind of the terms of service, but for your job. You really need to read it closely, but I imagine this was probably like a 40-page document.
Yeah.
Right.
JPMorgan Chase requires tech workers give 6 months notice before quitting because it's just so hard to replace tech workers.
That just seems like slavery with more paperwork.
Yeah. It's the worst kind of slavery because it also involves bureaucracy.
Uh-oh.
Oops.
That's in the one tab. Reminder to nuke that one tab.
Oops.
People are going to be like, what was it?
That's how we organize the stories.
Politico is catching up to 2019 level 1 text.
But
Yeah.
there is a new loophole here in that we were promised we would always have a choice. Guess what? Choice has been removed.
The privacy loophole in your Ring doorbell is gone.
This guy, a crime happened across the street from him. The investigation was like, hey, can we have your Ring camera data for this particular time? And he's like, great, yeah. And then they were like, we actually took all of it.
Well, I think
Also your indoor cameras.
they asked him for all of it, right? He said no. And then he was notified by Amazon. It was like, yeah, we're giving them all of it.
We took all of it.
Yeah, you don't have a choice in this matter anymore. So that little spy device on the front of your house, they can do what they want with that.
Or inside of your house. My mom, I've been telling her for ages, do not get one of these doorbells. She bought one last year. And then I sent her this article and she was like, oh, should I remove that? And I was like, Mom, I love her, but yes, you should remove that.
The great thing about my parents is their Ring doorbell would be nothing but animals.
Yeah.
No one passes by there.
When I first tried to explain this to my mom, she was like, well, if there was a crime across the street, I'd want to help them solve the crime. And I'm like, that's not all it's going to be used for, though. Like, they're going to grab everything. And she's like, they wouldn't do that. And then I sent her this, and she was like, oh, they did do that.
Yeah, tracking, it seems, is irresistible to major corporations, and especially
And governments alike.
and Huawei. I mean, they have such a reputation at this point. You would think that they would be cognizant of this. Like, how is this going to be? Even if this is not what we're doing, how are people going to interpret this?
Huawei under suspicion of tracking and spying on visitors at its Mobile World Congress booth in 2023.
What a weird thing to do.
You have to have the tag to get in, and look what's in the tag. Now, their argument is you must give the tag back after you leave the booth. Clearly, somebody didn't.
Yeah, like the guy was just like, screw this, I'm going to take it apart and take a picture of it.
So it's not that we weren't tracking. It's just like, oh, we're only tracking inside the booth, which gives us valuable data about what you enjoyed at the booth and spent the most time on. But a couple of them got out. I don't know how hard they were trying to get these back.
Yeah, I don't love that.
Krista, do you use AllTrails?
I look at their desktop site, but I don't have the app.
Well, I would encourage you not to get the app
Yeah.
for this reason.
AllTrails data exposes precise movements of former top Biden official. There is a feature on this app where you can hike a trail and then be like, show me my exact mileage, like in case you backtracked or something like that. So it's tracking your date like the whole time.
and in fact tracked him to the White House several times, to his home, his exact address, and to some hotels that he had used. They pretty much could rebuild his entire.
Yeah.
And
Maybe just use a paper map.
they refused to name him because he's still on there, and they didn't want people trying to, like figure
Find
it
him,
out.
yeah.
But he was apparently a high-ranking dude.
Fun times.
I guess you could just try to figure out how many people in Biden's cabinet are huge hikers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably not that many, right?
But just a hot tip, just get a paper map. And if you're like, I really want to reference it without having to constantly pull it out, take a picture of it on your phone and then keep the paper map in your pack. But then if you need to refer to it quickly, just look at the picture on your phone.
That's too much work, Krista. He's a busy man.
You gotta use all trails and get tracked all the time.
He's too busy ruining our lives. He doesn't have time to be looking at paper maps. Here's another boiling frog scenario, because we definitely talked about this when it first came out. There was a huge backlash. Just wait a while and do it again.
San Diego police want to add surveillance tech, 500 streetlight cameras plus license plate readers. If this is evoking a strange sense of deja vu, it's not deja vu. We totally covered this. And then people in San Diego said, that's weird. We don't think we support this. And then boom, it's back.
But even better than just being back, they were like, well, it's been a couple of years. We're going to have to replace all those cameras. So not only did they waste your tax dollars the first time, but now as they violate your security or your privacy the second time, they're going to take your money again.
Your privacy, your security, I mean.
These new cameras are so much better.
We can see everything about you, your pores.
Now, the first time around, they took a lot of backlash because they did not give a public comment period for this. They didn't even tell anybody. Somebody found out accidentally. Now they are giving you time for public comment. So if you live in San Diego, try to make some noise maybe. It probably won't matter.
No. I'm sure this probably exists in a lot of other cities and we just don't know about it yet.
Try to frame it in terms of like it's bad for minorities, right? That's how you fight this these days. It's a terrible tactic, but considering what we're up against, go ahead and do it. I think you can be excused for that. And we don't have a ton of malware news this week, but this one sounds pretty nasty.
Stealthy UEFI malware bypassing secure boot enabled by unpatchable Windows flaw.
What an image for this article.
This is a flaw in TPM 2.0. This has got state-sponsored malware written all over it, and this is not a proof of concept or academic thing. This is something that was found in the wild.
And you're not going to be able to remove it. It's in there.
Well, you can flash your BIOS, but it's hard to remove.
And you have to figure out you got it in the first place.
Yeah.
And a couple of breaches, always the big names, and it's always the same story.
Acer confirms breach after hacker offers to sell stolen data. Yes, that Acer. 160 gigabytes of company data.
I like how they post the
forum post.
Yeah, the forum post. And then even like Security Week, they reference, it's like, well, we think this is real because this hacker on this forum has a really good forum reputation.
It's like, the bar is just so low now.
That's the nicest guy in prison. And the Biden administration recently seemed to have woken up to the power subsystem problems and how vulnerable that is. There's another one that's quite important.
The Biden administration announces plan to stop water plant hacks. This is mainly unplugging them from the internet. If you're wondering why were they connected to the internet in the first place, we around this table are wondering that too.
It's nice if you can monitor the quality of the water in real time, but I would be okay with like a once a day update. Yeah. I don't think it's going to change that crazy.
You know, what if it sends email? Like, you remember dial up? It would like dial a phone number and then be like, boom, send an email, and then it could disconnect.
Or there could be a giant LED on a pole at the water plant that could start blinking.
Yeah. What if we had a security camera, one of the Huawei security cameras, pointed at the blinking LED? Then, that's a pretty reasonable level of isolation.
Why don't we just give China the control panel?
Well, that's actually what we've done.
Data breaches are always bad news, but in this case, maybe this will wake some people up. If it's going to happen to somebody, why not these people?
Data breach hits hundreds, quote unquote, of lawmakers and staff on Capitol Hill. A letter from House leaders obtained by NBC News said that the FBI was able to purchase some of the hacked material on the dark web.
Change your password, Congress.
Yeah.
I bet those are some terrible passwords.
Yeah.
I hope that we get a leak of that so we can see what Mitch McConnell's password was.
Mittens 1.
Turtle 1. He probably wouldn't know. It would have to be like his staffers who handle all that.
All right. Oh, you've wasted another perfectly good almost an hour.
Yep.
Actually, that was only 40 minutes.
Ooh.
Short one.
That's okay. We have nonsense coming up, though.
We didn't really want to have a lot of collapse news, and we wanted to have a lot of laughs this week. Come to us. We can all laugh at the... Well, what else are you going to do?
We can all laugh at the...
What else are you going to do, loser?
Subscribe to our Patreon and Floatplane and YouTube and everywhere else. Thank you. Bye.
And buy some t-shirts.
Top of the morning to ye. I think today is Leprechaun Day, St. Patrick's.
It's going to be embarrassing if it's not.
Yeah.
We could have quickly Googled that, and we didn't.
We didn't. I couldn't remember. I think March 17th is Wear Green Day. None of us are wearing green.
Well, you should be able to enjoy nonsense more than ever if you're completely drunk right now, right?
Yeah. Oh, even better.
Reverse drunk news.
You guys drink.
And it'll be so much more entertaining, I promise. Let's talk about some AI, as this is the robot section. And let's start out with, interestingly enough, one entity that is begging for regulation for AI.
U.S. Chamber of Commerce calls for AI regulation. They don't understand what's happening. Everybody is past the retirement age. What is going on?
They're a little worried that commerce could be changed entirely by AI, and it could. Could be some weird stuff. I think they also want to be in control of the regulation.
Yeah.
They want to help write it, make sure that it's advantageous to them, and doesn't become one of these patchwork state-by-state things where California stops them from stealing all of our data.
What if all the buggy whip factories close overnight?
We got past it. And here's a AI and regular robot story, because more and more we are going to see these things put together, and we're going to talk about what they're now the new buzzword. This might replace like blockchain AI, multimodal, which means that we're going to take two different AIs, like a language AI and an image AI, and we're going to smush them together.
Google's Palm E is a generalist robot brain that takes commands. ChatGPT-style AI model aids vision to guide a robot without special training.
That looks like he's able to do cashier work.
They command him to fetch the thing out of the drawer, and he is able to do so.
Can he get me my pack of pale mail? Can he work at the liquor store?
I was thinking about, it's like, can he make some rice and beans for me?
Yeah.
Assuming any of us would be able to afford that.
I would like some cinnamon toast, $100,000 robot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, sir. I've looked at your Google Pay account, and you cannot have that. Would you like some more slurry?
You're at the basic subscription level. Please upgrade.
So my colonists in RimWorld get nothing but the finest meals, but I'm eating nutrient-based.
Yeah.
And Google, famously at this point, when the whole AI thing started to kick off, and they were like, oh, of course we could do that, but we don't want to because it's disruptive and it's bad for business. And then ChatGPT happened, and they were like, no, we have one. No, we definitely have one.
It does feel that way. Every story, they're really defensive.
And so how are they going to try and make us use theirs now that we've already fallen in love with another one?
Google dusts off the failed Google Plus playbook to fight ChatGPT. I mean, Google's was good enough to convince somebody that it was sentient. I mean, let's not forget the guy that lost his job trying to fight for robot rights.
That guy was a little wacky, though.
I did get the vibe. It's a little wacky.
But if that guy had encountered ChatGPT, he would have been fighting just as hard.
That's what scares me a little bit about it. Not necessarily that it's that hyper intelligent, but that people don't understand how it works and will think that it's hyper intelligent.
I love the jailbreaks where they can get Sydney to talk about itself in the third person. It's amazing.
And what these new AI robots are teaching us is just how bad all the previous robots really were.
Amazon's big dreams for Alexa fall short. Yeah. How, we talk about the people in Microsoft that were working on the Bing team that were probably crying themselves to sleep every night because no one was using Bing. that are probably just as happy now that people are using Bing. But how bad do you have to feel if you're on the Alexa team? Because you were the first mover. You had all the advantages. You could have built this model. You had Amazon Compute. You had all of those GPU resources. And these people beat you to it.
Maybe they didn't care about that. Maybe they're just using it as a surveillance device.
Well, Microsoft, they got in early and they are wasting no time and taking AI and stuffing it into every product that they offer.
Microsoft introduces AI-based Dynamics 365 Copilot. Spiceworks talks about this. You know, my heart goes out to you if you have to use Dynamics 365. But the real story here is Power Automate. AI and Power Automate. Oh, yeah, that's a game changer.
And Microsoft keeps showing us new AIs because they are building on this success and they are doing so rapidly.
Microsoft unveils an AI model that understands image content and solves visual puzzles.
This just makes CAPTCHA just down the drain.
It's another multimodal AI.
So they describe some of the stuff that it can do here. It is really impressive. And they show, you know, it's like how it figures out all the visual stuff and applies that, builds its flowcharts.
I'm just going to get emails from clients being like, how come my CAPTCHA doesn't work anymore? It's always a race against the bots. They always get in eventually.
And the bots just got a huge supercharger
Yeah.
installed on their car. So that race is going to be theirs for a while. But early adoption of these AIs, they're impressive, but they're not necessarily ready yet. They still have some glaring problems.
McDonald's drive-through robot made a mistake, and then it got ridiculous. So this guy, he got a mistake in his drive-through order, and then trying to get it corrected did not work out for him.
The problems, like the misses here, one of them, somebody ordered 256 chicken nuggets. They didn't actually order 256 chicken nuggets. Some guy ordered something that was some food item. I can't remember what it was, but the robot decided to add butter. And it wasn't a food item that you could add butter to at all. So they're getting it wrong sometimes.
I wonder if instead of making the AI better, if they'll just dumb down the menu so you have to just like press a button. You know what I mean? Like not have to, you can't customize it very much. Comes in any color you like as long as it's black.
Oh, I think they would have trouble competing with other restaurants that don't do that. Some people are really picky about that thing.
No.
Also, they kind of crapped on this guy's breakfast order, which is a very weird breakfast order. Hash browns, sweet tea, and Coke.
Oh, together in the morning?
I mean, I could see either of those drinks with a hash brown being fine, I guess, but that's a lot of sugar and caffeine to blast yourself with first thing in the morning.
Early in the morning, yeah.
Well,
Why not just get a coffee?
I drink the Coke immediately, and then I nurse the tea for hours afterward.
McDonald's sweet tea does have like a weird cult following.
Because it's so much sugar.
I've never had one.
It's a mind-blowing amount of sugar in that drink.
It's not really tea at that point.
It's delicious, but I mean, it's sugar water.
Yeah.
And some of the other drive-thrus for picking up stuff for mom, they've implemented an AI ordering system. And the one I think it's AI, the one at Wendy's, I was there late at night and they seemed to be experimenting with it because it would go back and forth between two voices. And the one that seemed to be trying to take my order did not understand the difference between vanilla. I've said vanilla Coke, and it kept thinking that I said vanilla cone.
Oh.
And they don't even have ice cream cones. It's just like, how does this even...
It can't understand your accent.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to have to.
It'll get there pretty quick, I'm sure.
And Stable Diffusion, kind of a distant memory at this point, right? That wasn't even that long ago, but we've moved so far forward. However, they are still using that, and they are still continuing to destroy entire careers by just making it automated.
Stable Diffusion AI art generator now has an official Blender plugin. Now, the demo that I saw of this was like adding textures to a bedroom scene that someone had created, and that was good.
Some of the others I saw were a little less impressive, but I'm sure it'll get better.
So this is the Stable Diffusion image that was generated, and then you can see in the background where Blender has turned that into the 3D model. Looks pretty good too. Great for indie game developers, I'm sure. And if you're in the search engine game, I think at this point, you can't not have an AI, right? You have to step up.
DuckDuckGo dabbles with AI search. What?
I love that. Like they didn't. They're like, does DuckDuckGo even have a logo? And they just put a picture of a duck as the article image.
They also have the text has a lot of duck references in it.
Yeah.
So like the sticking their bill in. It's or sticking their beak in.
Someone had fun. We have fun here.
And I mean, we've talked about this. Obviously, it was crypto for a while. It was blockchain, and then it became AI, and there was a couple other ones sprinkled in there.
Just buzzwords. Metaverse.
Metaverse was a big one. Now, of course, it is ChatGPT.
Want to impress AI or want to impress Wall Street? Just add some AI.
Every company will now talk about how they're using AI, and we see this playing out.
Yeah.
Everybody's announcing it, whether their business model could benefit
Even supports
from AI.
it. Yeah. I do think that maybe this has a little more staying power than some of the other, like the metaverse.
Yeah, this could change the world.
Yeah.
But every company that says they're using it is not going to change the world.
Right.
They're just trying to get that quick hit.
That boost in
investors.
investor dollars.
And AI is being used, even though we've been warned over and over, it's not ready for production yet.
Brit newspaper fills space with AI assisted articles because hiring people to do that is expensive.
It's not even that expensive because like writers make almost no money. But
the thing that I thought that made me think of this is, okay, this newspaper is using lots of AI generated content. We are seeing an explosion of AI generated content, but all of the AIs that exist today were trained in a time before AI generated content exists. Does that mean that all of the models from here are only going to get worse?
they'll get recursive and like start becoming more and more weird.
Yeah.
I kind of hope so because that would be really funny to me. But
It's funny because they didn't really mean to tell us this, but they kind of told us this in this article. They were like, well, the great thing about this is the AI can do kind of like the easy lifting, and the real reporters can go and do things that we want them to do. And the example they gave was like it had done just like a silly listicle about what to do in a certain town when you're visiting. So basically what they're saying is, yeah, the crap that we shovel onto our website, we don't have to waste our time with that anymore. All the clickbait nonsense, we just let the AI do that.
Again, yeah, the clickbait, it's going to be
a race to the bottom.
a race to the bottom, and also the volume is going to be nuts. And then as an individual, you're going to feel betrayed when you waste a bunch of time and you get to the end and it's like,
oh, this is just that's how I feel about garden. I sent you guys those videos of like gardening channels, and it's just AI generated filler content that's not useful because it's not specific to any zone.
Instead of being delightful, it'll be infuriating, like reading a long 4chan green text and you get to the end and it's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
It's an anti-joke, yeah.
It's just like, what's the payoff? What's the payoff?
There's no payoff.
Well, we've got AI that's closing in on actually seeming human, but we still don't have drone delivery everywhere. We were promised drone delivery, and maybe there's a new contender.
Wing debuts a ride-share style drone delivery network. So a single step platform lowers outside and you step one step on it, you grab the rail and then zoop, off you go.
Well, so basically if you're a business and you want to do drone deliveries with your items, you can just sort of install a little drone bay or whatever. You don't own the drones, you're just part of the network. And it's like, oh yeah, we got like 5 drones in your area. You want to deliver something? Here, you can have this one. And then
just like Factorio's drone networks.
But you own all of them.
I can hear that little like a nice sound, little sound effect in that game.
I wonder when we're going to get the first. It's going to be like, okay, hey, this is McDonald's. Our drone bay is ready. Please come and get this order for food. And it was like, oh yeah, we're just over at the compost factory. We'll be there next. I was like, oh, I don't know about that. We have some space news, and we had some very successful space launches. They were a bit overshadowed by everything else that happened, but good job, NASA.
NASA's Artemis 1 Orion spacecraft aced its moon mission despite heat shield issue. So that's good. No, it's good data. Could have failed catastrophically, but it didn't.
It's got the crew capsule, so we're moving forward with our moon mission.
There's a few engineers who put in some like redundancies for that kind of thing, and they're just feeling so vindicated right now.
And it's insane to think, but this might actually be a cheaper way of storing data someday.
Florida startup moves closer to building data centers on the moon. Lone Star Data Holdings secured around $5 million, which is about enough to just dream about this and not actually do it.
Somebody's got to start writing the post-apocalypse story now, where we're just trying to build back to the point where we can get to the moon and recover.
To find all that information.
Yeah, and then the first one to get there gets all the secrets of the old world.
That's a really cool premise for a sci-fi story.
I can tell you how it ends. They get there thinking that they're going to get the secrets for EUV manufacturing, but instead it's just filled with TikTok videos.
It's a giant feed of Twitter stuff. It's like, is this all AI generated?
Yeah, because it was Amazon EWS, and they were storing what most of their compute infrastructure does, which is not critical infrastructure. It's just ridiculous nonsense.
And the Chinese Guardian Moon robot is still active.
Oh.
That's the finale. Well, the finale is when they figure out it's the Planet of the Apes moment when they're they're on their knees screaming at the sky, which is not really a sky.
The space, yeah.
No one can hear them scream because it's space.
Well, the mission control. And NASA had a bit of a problem with one of their space robots, but it's all good now.
NASA fixed the solar observation spacecraft by turning it off and turning it on again. Fire mode reset sees Interstellar Boundary Explorer back on the job.
That is an edge of your seat reboot cycle.
Yeah. Wasn't there one of their bots, like it started malfunctioning and they're like, just hit yourself. And it like hit itself and it was fine.
One of the
It seems to happen a lot.
like one of the Mars bots?
I think so. I might be manufacturing
because
that
of
memory.
dust. I seem to remember something. Like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And everybody wants to have a space program now because space is going to be big business in the near future. And Japan wanted desperately to be part of the gang.
After nearly a decade in development, Japan's new rocket fails in its debut.
It's unfortunate, but it's so refreshing when you hear these Japanese, like people in charge, when they get something wrong. Our leaders, when they get something wrong, they just deny it or ignore it or just don't comment. The Japanese people are like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what
I will say that
happened.
like people working in space are a little different than politicians.
Well, but this guy's like probably the bureaucrat running the program. They probably don't put the actual astronauts out in front of the cameras.
But I mean, it's a difference between working at like NASA versus working at the White House.
And moving on to the nonsense section, this is madness, and I can't imagine why we are trying to do this. If there's one thing that we do not have a shortage of on this planet, it's children.
The scientists create mice with two fathers after making eggs from male cells.
Why? Why do we need this?
Although there were was this the one where there were mitochondrial defects?
Yeah, there's going to be problems. There's so many kids out there who no one wants. Just go get one.
I wish it was that simple. Well, I understand why we have some of the safeguards we do, but
Yeah,
it's still terribly hard to.
that whole logic cycle is just a spiral of darkness.
Yeah, it's like, well, I want it to be easier for people to adopt, but I also don't want abusive people to adopt. And
when you get to the end of the spiral, you're probably like, maybe we shouldn't have any more people.
I can't just think of it as like, if you want to adopt children, the default position is something is wrong with you, which is not a terrible. I mean,
that's how I feel just in general. Like something has to be wrong with me.
yeah, same.
It's probably a disorder.
Well, I think something's wrong with this because I think we invested in this and we're not getting any returns on our investment.
Moderna's vaccine for the thing, hike the price, but offer it for free if you're uninsured, which seems very weird, very messed up set of priorities and incentives there.
So we went from putting a gun to your head and saying you have to have this to, no, this is $130.
Government stopped footing the bill.
But we already paid that bill in the beginning. And perhaps the zeitgeist is reflecting all of this horror that we keep talking about every week. And maybe it's starting to really affect all of us.
ADHD startups are exploding, and now there's even a dedicated browser. So, this is frustrating.
I do feel like I've seen more people talk about ADHD with the rise of the internet. So it's like, you wonder, it's like how much of it is environmentally based.
Because it's so easy to tune out the bad or the stuff you don't like. Now, this browser is interesting, though. It turns off all sounds. It turns off any kind of pop-up notifications. It actually sounds like a beautiful browser just for like general use.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, I think we live in such an environment where like there's so much stuff coming at us all the time. That's why we're seeing a rise in the diagnosis, because the environment makes you feel overwhelmed.
But it's also because that diagnosis will excuse you from certain responsibilities and get you drugs. And it gets you the same drugs that a lot of people like to abuse.
Maybe.
And once again, the unintended consequences here seem like a risk. How old are the
CRISPR babies?
CRISPR babies?
I thought about that when we saw the
super
story.
babies.
I don't know.
That seems like they're doing okay. Maybe China's just not telling us about them.
Maybe something bad has happened and they're like, we'll just keep that out of the news.
But the unintended consequences are going to come from this level 1 prediction.
UK government urged to consider changing law to allow gene editing of embryos. And this is to try to correct genetic defects that are caught very early in pregnancy.
But you know, for sure, if this was legal, but it was like, well, it's legal, but you have to have a doctor sign off on it, and you can't just do it for a designer baby, which is the bigger. Donald Trump would have had designer babies. No question
every
about it.
celebrity would.
Absolutely. And
haven't we seen where this goes? Has no one seen Gattaca?
they've
There's
seen
like
it.
whole plot lines about it.
They've seen it and they don't care. And my God, the things that we're learning about what we've been taught about our food, it's just infuriating. And I'm so angry that I spent that many years of my life not understanding and being told the opposite of what is real. And there's a lot of different things here, but the big one is sugar.
Yeah.
Big sugar. Get your pacifier there. Big sugar is in total control of your life.
Food fight. The FDA is redefining healthy and the food industry is pushing back. It turns out real butter with real salt in moderation is probably less bad for you than the butter substitute.
The country crock that we all ate out of as kids.
And saturated fats. Listen, I'm not a doctor, not a nutritionist. I don't know anything. I'm an idiot on YouTube. But it seems to me that saturated fats might not be the villain that they've been made out to be. Now, this doesn't change any of that. This still vilifies saturated fat, but it very, very carefully excludes sugar from all of this.
See, that's weird to me.
Yeah.
That's so weird to me.
Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, it's not weird when you consider why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's because the big sugar, like Coke, for example, they own all of the medical stuff at this point. Them and Big Pharma.
I was just going to say like corn and corn syrup and
it's
all
also
the
it's
investments
all
we
the
make
same
in that.
stuff,
Yeah.
It's also really interesting to try to read as much as you can about sugar substitutes, because some of those, like sucralose, should not have a metabolic impact because it's just left-handed sugar, and it turns out that in some scenarios it does. Apparently.
A lot of people commented from last week when we talked about the erythritol. I don't know how to pronounce that word. I think it's close to that. They're saying that was Big Sugar pushing a fake study so they didn't get threatened by replacement sugar.
Interesting.
Because that stuff is as close as we've ever gotten to tasting like sugar.
Have you
So-
ever had a stevia leaf? It actually tastes pretty sweet.
I've had refined stevia. I've not had a leaf.
One of my roommates in college, she had like a little herb garden. She grew stevia, and it was weird. You'd eat that leaf, and it was the same kind of like super
But it's got,
sweet.
don't you get the aftertaste? I get the aftertaste.
It's a little
nasty.
bit grassy, like when you eat just the leaf, but it's
didn't-
very sweet.
I didn't like stevia nearly as much as I like the erythritol stuff. And this one, I mean, there's a lot of loopholes here, but is this a baby step?
2 drug companies can legally start selling cocaine, heroin, and MDMA for very strict, controlled medical reasons.
I'm sure they won't ever abuse that in the lab.
That's in Canada as well. That's not the U.S.
There's Canada.
Oh my goodness. It's so aggressive.
Look at, oh my gosh, please buy, subscribe.
Oh, this is can you see the friendly URL? This was one of when we first started with the horribleness of the last couple of years, there were some extreme things considered. Now in China, they did this.
Yeah.
But you would think, like, as they point out, and this, well, there was a comment here. It's like, well, we know some countries did this, but a liberal democracy would never consider this. They considered it.
UK briefly considered killing cats because of the global situation a couple of years ago. It's like, because cats could carry the disease.
But not just killing all cats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They thought about wiping out the cats.
Let's look at this article and then see what's happening with bird flu.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, birds are, we need them for food. But cats are our family members.
It's true. I'm just saying.
A lot of pets were euthanized in China. It's very sad.
I like to believe that that would be the line for me.
That you would fight back against that.
I know they would die anyway, and so would I. But I like to believe that I have the courage that that would be my line in the sand of the dystopia. It's like, all right, here's where I'm checking
Come
out.
here to round up my cat.
Yeah, the cat SWAT team. I'm going to take as many of you as I can.
If I ever retire and decide to be an author, which is, you know, this is parallel universe country. One of the characters in the book is totally going to be somebody who's moved to Iceland or somewhere, because that was the line in the sand they drew, and they took their cats with them. And it's like, no, I'm living as a mountain man off the grid because
They tried to take my cat.
They came from my cats.
Yeah.
They can find that guy homesteading on the moon when they go to the moon data centers.
Yeah.
He's a little wacky though.
And-
He knows about the space road. He tries to warn the explorers that there's the Chinese death bot up there. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're crazy.
It's a little bit based on the cats with all the thumbs, so there's just cats everywhere.
Moon cats. Well, maybe we won't have to worry about that, because maybe we will revive a horrible wipe out humanity type situation from the permafrost.
Scientists have revived a zombie virus that spent 48,500 years frozen in permafrost.
Did you hear that like emergency siren in the background? That's my reaction to this story.
It's the first infection.
Oh, yeah. They think that's going to start happening more often. Like there's a risk of just any sort of disease coming out of permafrost as it melts.
They're doing this one on purpose.
Right.
But it's because they're afraid that, you know, as the climate changes, then things are going to start melting, and these could. But how would they? What vector could they follow from there?
Animals.
Are there a lot of animals there?
Yeah.
We have to kill all of them.
I know. Every story, you know, we were like, no sads this week because we're going to try to do fun stories. It's like every story ends with we have to kill all the animals.
Well, here's a fun one. I guess at this point, St. Patrick's Day is already be over, right?
I guess.
But maybe you can enjoy some of this next year.
Sunny D vodka seltzer, a childhood favorite, grows up.
I'm only interested if it comes in the pouch with the straw.
Nah, it's going to be these little 12-ounce cans.
Yeah.
As someone who tried, like in a college party, I was like, oh, we'll use Sunny D instead of orange juice with the vodka. Do not recommend.
Have you ever actually seen Sunny D outside of its pouch? It's just clear.
Are you thinking of Capri Sun?
Oh, I'm thinking of Capri Sun.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Sunny D is the orange
Orange
juice.
juice. Kind of orange juice, yeah.
It's orange and juice, but it is not orange juice.
Yeah.
But
It's like Yoo-hoo. It's chocolate flavored drink.
I was shocked to find out that my orange flavored Capri Sun was in fact clear.
Yeah. I mean, I get it because you don't really need to spend the money on the color, but
also, I mean, think about this idea. We are just so conditioned that we think that caramel, like black liquid, is more appealing than clear liquid. Because Pepsi tried not dying.
oh
yet.
yeah, and people didn't
People
like
are
it.
like, what is this? I can't have this. And here's another thing that you're not going to be able to have because it's evil and bad for the environment.
Editorial: balloon bans are the result of humans acting irresponsibly with their stuff. Also wasting helium, which we need for medical imaging.
Yeah, I'm kind of okay with this. The amount of times I find balloons on the side of the road while I'm walking.
I don't like. What do we ever use balloons for that we really desperately need, other than like
Spying on each other.
Chinese, other than distracting the world from a horrible train accident? That's the only use that balloons have. And all the ridiculous, like when people will do the gender reveals,
Yeah,
and it's like,
it's
oh, this is at least 5,000 pink balloons.
And then they end like people are like, oh, they go away, and it's like, no, they end up on the side of the road, and then I have to pick them up.
That's the same mentality of people who shoot into the air, and they're like, oh, I'm shooting up.
The bullet just goes into space. Like, it goes into the stratosphere. There's no problems there.
And And another, just a beautiful unintended consequence of overreach of government. But when they announce things like this, they don't even have any self-awareness of how stupid it was in the first place.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams is telling stores to have customers remove their face masks? Question mark.
Because there's a lot of crime. And even with your facial recognition technology, you can't catch them because they're allowed.
We did a story a while back where they were like, oh no, facial recognition, it isn't defeated by the masks.
Yeah, I think that was fake.
Yeah, so if you want, that's just telling me I shouldn't wear masks when I go to Lowe's because they have cameras everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, now, that's funny because like the people who didn't want a mask now might want a mask because it's anti-surveillance. You never know where you land on the mask situation. And this one, I wanted to know more about the creepy dolls.
Yeah.
And they did
Are there no photos?
They didn't bring the details here, no.
FBI searches Peabody, quote-unquote, creepy doll, unquote, business owner's home in Salem. And that was the extent of the story, so obviously they didn't find anything super bad.
They found this one picture of the door, I guess, to it. But this Cat's Creepy Creations was, they did a lot of stuff with human bones and skulls and stuff.
How do you get those legally?
I don't know. Maybe
How do you acquire
You can actually buy all that on Amazon, which is crazy.
I do see, so like, I was trying to figure out the idea of a bone I found, and there's a lot of people who sell like animal bones on Etsy.
Oh, yeah,
which is odd.
And they dug up the yard, too, and took some stuff. Some people watching it were like, yeah, they came out of there with boxes of stuff, but we didn't get any indication. And they asked the owner for comment, and they just no commented it. So there's a lot of questions still going on about Cat's Creepy Creations.
There's a lot of weird dolls on the marketplace, but I think it's mostly just strange old women.
Do you think there's any voodoo going on here?
No. I think people just like weird, creepy dolls.
Right now, there's somebody in a lab that's like, well, all this is innocuous stuff. And the people are like, we can't be embarrassed by this. You have to find something they did wrong.
Well, congratulations to the women of Saudi Arabia. Oh, so much liberation for you.
Saudi Arabia removes 13 new jobs for women.
Approves. I like that you just auto-corrected that.
Saudi Arabia approves 13 new jobs for women, female drivers, and private tutors are now allowed. But then you read the story and you get the details, and it's like...
I thought women weren't allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. Did they change that?
They changed like a little bit. But now you can not only drive, but you can be like an Uber.
Engagement challenge. Is this for the international people to make them feel better? Because that's what it feels like.
Personal care worker, home tailor. What is a home? Oh, it's like you stay at your own home.
Modifies clothes, yeah.
Home manager, home farmer. They weren't allowed to farm in their own homes before. Chris, what would you do if your government told you weren't allowed to farm at your own
Maybe
home?
that's where my line in the sand would be.
And we've talked a lot about the Thai government in the past. The king, yes, Thailand still has a monarchy. The king must never be insulted or maligned in any way. And much like Mr. Winnie the Pooh Xi Jinping, it's a very low bar.
Rubber duck calendar lands Thai man in jail for an insult to monarch. A very low bar indeed.
Did people compare him to a rubber duck, I guess?
The rubber duck is, you remember the Hong Kong where they had the umbrellas and the blank sheets of paper?
Yeah.
And it was like, no, that's revolutionary. Rubber duck is kind of like that.
Okay. So it's become a symbol.
And there were some pictures like, here, you see that's the rubber duck on the money. Well, it would be the king on the money. So,
the ego on these people.
And China, decidedly not woke at all. I don't think they understand it. I mean, they've got to be aware of it because, they keep their eye on everything. But they definitely don't understand how it works. And the other thing about China is they really want to get into Africa. They want to be the provider for Africa for all the energy and infrastructure and stuff. So they're trying to be Africa friendly, but they just don't understand it.
Chinese embassy denies racism in the quote-unquote blackface skit. And then you read this and you think, oh, China, that is blackface.
Was there not a video of it?
No, this is it right here. So this woman right here is a Chinese woman, She is painted black, and they added padding to give her the big booty.
Oh.
Yeah. This monkey here is a Chinese guy in a monkey outfit. Right. And then they introduced that as sort of like a, hey, we love Africa.
It's like, could you not just hire African actors instead
not.
of whatever this is?
So they got some backlash there.
Pretty sure this was an Always Sunny skit.
It could have been easily.
Yeah.
I know, you got a license for that article, and this one is maybe the craziest one we've ever had.
It is forbidden to silently pray in certain places, according to the UK.
So this lady here is anti-abortion. And over the years, she has tried a variety of things to try to dissuade people from getting abortions by going to the clinics. Now, that's obviously not allowed. But now, all she does is she goes to the clinic, she stands there, and she closes her eyes. And she was questioned by the police. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Are you praying? You better not be praying. And yes, she was convicted for praying silently to herself at an abortion
Not
clinic.
causing a scene. That's insane.
I mean, she was standing there, but
But if you're not harassing people, like I can see not harassing someone trying to go to their medical appointment, but
If
if you're
that's
just
a public
standing
sidewalk.
there, yeah, you're not hurting anybody.
And when they questioned her, she said, well, there were some moments when I was praying, but the moment that you're talking about, I don't know, maybe I wasn't praying at that time. Maybe I was thinking about something else. And they were like, oh, whatever, you're going to jail. Yeah, that's just, if you're in the UK, that should be your line in the sand, whether you're religious or not. And speaking of religious wars,
As Israel's
Smotrich
says that the call to quote unquote wipe out a Palestinian town was just a slip of the tongue, just a figure of speech. That's not what I meant at all. That was totally what he meant.
Now, what he said was, we should wipe out that town.
Oops.
There's been some violence there, as there is at all times on that border. And World War III, boy, we're creeping toward it, aren't we?
I just feel like every story has been like, oh, things are ramping up, and it's like I don't want to go down this plot line.
Like week after week, I can't remember a week where I thought like maybe we got a little further away from World War III this week. It's always a little bit closer, but this is a very, very bad news story for Americans if we do go there.
77% of young Americans are too fat, mentally ill, or on drugs or more to join the military.
One
Pentagon
of all,
study found.
pick one or pick all of them.
Oh, they bring that up. So it's actually a fairly low number that only has one of these. Most people have a combination. Remember what we talked about? They do now have the fat company and the stupid company in the military. So like, oh, you failed on one of those two things, but we'll still take you and we'll put you in here. It's sort of like the 099 for military. But even that apparently is too high a bar for most of our youth.
Well, we're fortunate the big brains in Microsoft are bringing us the AI to be able to bring back John Candy to bring us the movie Fat Company.
I don't know that movie. You talking about Stripes?
Yeah. But the woke, version for World War III preparation.
Wouldn't a better alternate title for Stripes for the modern age be Stretch Marks? And you're not allowed to abuse animals as much these days. That's a good thing. You can all get behind that.
As much.
But we still need to be entertained. We need to forget the misery around us. So we got some novel ways.
See how this quote-unquote cruelty-free circus replaced animals with holograms.
Sugar bread and holograms.
Listen, if we're going holograms, you don't have to do animals. You can do Hatsune Miku.
Or Tupac, which we've already got. So what they do is they put up this big mesh thing right here. And then that, when you turn the lights off, you can't really see it that well. And that is the thing
projects
that
it,
holds the holograms. It looks
It
interesting.
contains them, because otherwise they would stampede into the audience.
It looks interesting, but I don't know that I would pay to go out and see that,
Circuses are bad vibes.
I don't know what this girl is doing.
What's the caption? I
I
can't
don't
read
think
it.
she's a hologram.
She might be. You
It
just don't
says
know.
she's a robot.
She's part of the metaverse.
And here's the thing you got to remember. In the good old United States, you can sue anybody for any reason as long as you've got the fee.
Nebraska woman files suit against all people who are homosexual. And it's got a handwritten filing, which is amazing.
Oh, eventually, does this count for people who haven't come out officially? Like, how do they define it?
That's a good question. She is suing on behalf of God and Jesus, and she's tired of the homosexuals, and she would like to see them change their ways, and she's going to try to force them to do that.
Do you think she even knows any homosexuals in Nebraska?
I'm sure there's lots of homosexuals in Nebraska. Come on.
There's not a lot of people in general in Nebraska.
And she probably is not going to have success here, but people are really having a lot of fun with it. Here's part of her case. I'm 66 years old, and I never thought that I would see the day in which our great nation or our great state of Nebraska would become so compliant to the complicity of some people's lewd behavior.
I hope she's never been on the internet. It gets so much weirder.
What if you have a homosexual couple who are like old and they're not having sex anymore? Then there's no lewd
There's so many,
behavior, right?
yeah, there's so many loopholes here. Like, is she going to have a lawyer to find? And what is she hoping to get? Like $1 from each one?
No. She pointed out she's not seeking any damages. She just wants them to stop. And the personal recognizance bond strikes again this week. This one is even more disgusting because, my God, how dangerous is this?
Person arrested for DUI twice in 5 hours in York County. That's York County, Pennsylvania. She was arrested.
They're like, just, you're still drunk, but we're just going to let you go.
Well, so what happened was they were pulled over for DUI. It was confirmed they had the DUI. They locked them up, let them out some hours later. They went back to their car, called the cops, and said, hey, my car's not working. And the cops went out there to help and determined that they were drunk again.
Lost in sauce.
5 hours. So they had to so when they got out, I'm assuming you don't stay drunk for 5 hours, right? So they went and got more alcohol before they went back to the car and managed to get drunk on the way there.
They might be able to check themselves into rehab to avoid real jail time. I mean, that'll be good.
No.
They're going to lose their license, but
they should lose their license.
I don't want to, as a taxpayer, I don't want to pay for them being in jail. I just don't want them driving.
I think that's a reasonable cost. Get this insane person off the street, save a life, pay some jail fees.
Let's see how they do rehab first, and then if they don't do so good, then jail time.
See, fine. That's exactly the kind of mentality that we're getting in these liberal cities.
What about like a Taco Bell sponsored rehab? Can we do that?
I remember this was, I guess, 2021.
Yeah.
When this first, the metaverse was just a burgeoning new thing.
It was the hot new investment capital strategy. It was to put metaverse on stuff.
And Taco Bell went there first, and everybody's like, that's stupid. But apparently it's still going strong.
San Francisco tech couple marries in a Taco Bell metaverse, but they're not stopping there.
That looks like a real place in that photo.
Well, so he pointed out that they met at a Taco Bell or something. And so it was a big part of their thing. And I assume these people have some money. Maybe they're from rich families. I think he worked in Hollywood. But they're having a total of 5.
They're a tech couple, says.
They're having 5 weddings. One of them will be in the Taco Bell metaverse. The others will just be all over the place.
The black bean and rice chalupa is almost edible for me. The shell is too greasy. It makes me
not feel well.
Do you like it?
The beans and it's beans and rice.
Do you really like it?
No.
Oh, you should have said yes, and I was going to say, why don't you marry it?
Mm.
And of course,
the joke wasn't that good.
Wow. The food wasn't that good either.
It's a Taco Bell caliber joke.
Yeah.
And of course, I added this one just so Wendell could wax poetic about one of his heroes.
The final act of Worf, the Star Trek legend who deserved one most of all. And, a lot of credit goes to Michael Dorn because they did add the Worf character at the last minute, and Michael Dorn was sort of left to come up with it. And he did sort of go against the grain, and he did a good job with it and all that other kind of stuff. My favorite is the supercut of all the times they said no to Worf, where Worf's like, I've got an idea, let's do this. And they were just like, no. He really, really got a bad rep. But this is just plugging the new season of Picard. which
Oh no.
the people on our Twitch chat has said is okay. And so I was like, okay, maybe it's a little better. Maybe season 3 will be good like season 2. And that is incorrect.
Oh, you watched it?
Yeah.
Oh.
I watched it at the behest of the Twitch chat, and
Did they fail you?
What? So
they have.
Let's say that, like, what if season 1 and 2 would probably be like a 3 out of 10 or something like that, right? What is season 3?
3.1.
They got a new guy writing it, right?
Yeah, season 2, it's really weird because season 3 starts like season 2 never existed. And there's a couple of callbacks to season 1, but they're still really heavy with the callbacks. And you can tell that some of the new writers didn't really get very far. Like there's a lot of callbacks to season 1, and it's like, guys, and if you're a real Star Trek The Next Generation fan, you don't really weigh season 1 that heavily on stuff. And also, like, spoiler alert, in the 4th episode, major plot point is ship doesn't have power. That's a pretty common thing in Star Trek. It's like, oh, we don't have power for some reason. And so they spend some time on the holodeck. And it's like,
where's the power for that coming from?
Yeah. They actually inserted in like the most ham-fisted way. They inserted some dialogue that's like, oh, the holodeck power is on a separate grid now. And it's like, guys, come on.
How many times did engineering have to like move power from one system to another?
Yeah,
they could easily do that.
That's a writer who obviously did not watch the episodes. They only watched Star Trek: First Contact, the movie, because in that one they actually used the holodeck to attack the Borg, and that wasn't a power problem. That was the loss of control of the ship. But the holodeck wasn't considered a critical system. That had nothing to do with power. It was all about the Borg losing control of the thing. Because there's also another Borg reference later in that episode. It's just like,
but let's try to stay on point here. How was Worf's performance in season 3?
It was actually very good.
Okay,
it was nicely done. It was a reasonable cameo.
They also pointed out in an article that the whole recurring joke of Worf having no sense of humor was kind of like his idea of how to play that.
Yeah.
Which was it was always really funny.
Yeah.
Because he was the straight man.
Yeah.
And he never got the joke.
Yeah.
Well, so as we collapse financially, some industries that are going to do well is vices like alcohol and probably some prostitution and gambling. And you can gamble on sporting events because you don't know the outcome. Right?
WWE in talks with state gambling regulators to legalize betting on scripted match results. And it's like, wait a minute. If it's scripted, how are you?
What happens when that gets leaked?
Couldn't you just, like, let's say that you were in league with the gambling organization and the betting was really heavy to one side. What would stop you from just changing the outcome and reaping all that money? Also, back in the early days of wrestling, when it was like a carnival traveling show, that was one of the ways that they duped the little townsfolk, is they had them bet on the wrestling, which was predetermined because they didn't know. We've gone full circle.
Isn't that...
No, this time we'll have an AI determine the outcome. That way they get the investor dollars too.
I'm pretty sure this is a plot point in Mike Judge's Idiocracy. It's like, wait a minute.
It's not, but it should have been. If there's ever a sequel.
Oh, I just saw this headline.
Yeah. So, this gal's a voice actor, and voice actresses, they get a lot of attention from the nerds. Like people really latch onto them. They really love them. And she has obviously been receiving of that so much that she understands the pitfalls of it.
The pitfalls.
An anime actress with nearly 1 million Twitter followers tweeted out a guide telling her fans to bathe before coming to her concert. Man, that is a tough conversation to have. This is probably the best way to handle it.
Wasn't there was some convention a few years ago where they had posters up that were like, hey, maybe put on a little deodorant today.
Yeah, anime.
Yeah.
Just, at a very basic level, it's like, oh, I'm one of those people that doesn't have to bathe every day. You are one of those people that have to bathe every day.
I don't
Krista
bathe
claims
every
that
day. It's bad for your hair.
But I mean, like Krista.
I do put on deodorant every day.
Krista is physically radically different than both of us. So
Yeah.
I could totally see that our world experience doesn't transfer onto her. And I've never detected a foul odor from her.
Yeah.
But Krista, do you wash your face every day?
Yeah, I wash my face and hands and feet every day.
So
and
how-
I also put on lotion every day and I deodorant. Like you do stuff so you don't stink.
Do you spend more than 10 minutes in front of a sink every day?
Wait a minute. She just brought something up. I got my mental picture here. Do you like hike your foot up into the sink?
No,
one
you
at
just
a
put it
time?
in the bathtub.
Oh, okay.
More so during like the summer when you're wearing sandals, you don't want to go to bed with dirty feet.
Well, a bathtub would count in that scenario.
Yeah.
It's like, so do you spend more than 10 minutes a day self-grooming?
Yeah, because you got to comb the hair, you got to put on your deodorant, got to put on your sunscreen.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, I don't have to bathe every day. Yes, you do. I don't have to wash my hair every day. Maybe every other day.
But you got to wash it.
Yeah, and you got to use shampoo. And the soap is really something that's very important. Like, you need to cover your skin.
Don't just think that the shampoo runs down. You got to scrub.
Yeah, your skin needs to have a thin film of soap on it, and then you have to rinse that off so that you know that you're doing a good
But
job.
it's insane that like no one's explained that to some people, and they get to adult life and don't know it.
No, I mean, I've had that conversation before, and it's like, you really should do this. People notice, and it's like, oh, people, nobody's mentioned it in a while. They're not noticing. They're noticing.
They're just choosing not to say anything because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand that. Like your own funk, your
nose
are immediately like, cause it's there so much, and it comes on slowly for you.
Yeah,
you're never gonna notice it.
Yeah,
and sometimes when I'm like, during the pandemic, I'd go a couple of days without taking a shower, and then I would notice it, and I'm like, wow, imagine what everybody else
Yeah,
is
well,
doing.
when you're gonna be around people, it's like, okay, I got to shower because I'm gonna be around people. Like,
yeah,
it's just common courtesy. But
well, speaking of grooming, my cats spend a lot of time grooming. Imagine how intense the grooming was for this cat.
I'm pretty sure this is just a promo for the Cocaine Bear movie, but we'll go with it. We'll go with the headline. Wild big cat captured in Oakley tests positive for cocaine, transferred to the zoo. So
Now I can see this because owning exotic animals is a big drug dealer thing. Because remember, we had an article before where somebody was like dealing in wild animals and meth at the same time, and somebody got shot.
what's it, Joe Exotic or whatever? I could kind of see that.
He's still in the pokey, isn't he?
Is he?
Oh, yeah. Hey, remember, because he thought
I didn't
Trump
watch
was going to pardon him, and he got a limousine, and Trump let him down.
Oh.
But they're going to rehab this cat. I get it. And hopefully he'll have a good life. But he's probably never going to get the sweet, beautiful experience of being high
He'll
on
never be that
cocaine.
high again.
Imagine if, like, they got him in the truck or something. He's going down the road and he gets a whiff of cocaine. And he's like, oh, I got to have
I
it.
remember that core memory.
It's like
Tears his way
catnip.
out.
Yeah, the cat will go insane if it gets some catnip.
And Toronto, apparently, the leaders of Toronto think that they have God powers.
Yeah.
City of Toronto puts up a sign limiting barking at dog park and removes it following public scrutiny. I get putting up a sign that's like, if your dog is barking continuously, something is wrong, but dogs are going to bark.
But this is also the place we bring dogs to sort of like get
Get
that
their
out.
energy out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Rue was a puppy, the only thing that at our dog park had it was like, make sure your dog has their shots so they don't pick up parvo, and like clean up after your dog. And they also said don't bring toys because the dogs tend to get weirdly territorial over them.
No, I can see that.
So they were just allowed to run and play with each other.
Do they have policies on cocaine?
No, but I think it's frowned upon to bring cocaine to the public park.
Frowned upon.
Frowned upon, but not illegal.
And another out of control cat, although I don't think it was the cat's fault in this situation. I think that the mail carrier needs to work on his form.
Armed police were put on standby in Bodmin after delivery was attacked by a cat. Yeah, that was the mailman.
He put his whole finger in the slot.
Oh, and the cat.
And the cat was like, oh, toy. Like, why would you need to put your whole hand in there? Just
slide the mail in.
Yeah.
Also, like, cricket grabs me quite a bit, and like, it doesn't feel great, but it doesn't. I'm not like, like.
Yeah, but in that cat's mind, that might not necessarily have been a human. He probably attacked the mail every day.
Oh.
And today it was like, ooh.
Yeah,
Meat.
really got at it. Yeah.
I finally got at its meaty goodness. Also, not just bathing, laundry.
Yeah.
Try not to wear your clothes more than like a day or two in a row.
You just thought about
You're
that.
back there having like flashbacks.
Yeah. It's like, you need to do your laundry. Like, you really do.
It's probably a transition here about smelling like a monkey, but I can't come.
HelloFresh drops coconut milk from Thailand over monkey labor allegations. They weren't just allegations. There's
They were
lots
true.
of amazing, horrifying, but also I can't look away videos on the internet of monkeys that have been severely punished if they don't help farm the coconuts. But is it better than people? Is it worse than people?
Do we have to choose one or the other?
Can't we just treat things well?
Is there a Centecow idea for coconut milk we can do lab coconut milk?
I mean, we've got the coconuts. It's not a matter of growing the coconuts, it's just a matter of extracting the milk from them. Yeah, that's a wild story. I got to figure, like, if you trained monkeys to do that and just gave them a reward for it and if they weren't interested, it's like, all right, you're not interested, we're going to take you and put you back over here. Would that be okay?
Well, if this is okay, then wouldn't the fastest route to some of the commerce for this is like really terrible industries like refining lead or steel working? And it's like, we need to breed super intelligent monkeys that don't have any rights that can work the steel mills.
No, they're just going to lower the age that people can work so that way children can work in those jobs.
Here's the thing about it. I think if they drop a coconut, people don't get incinerated.
Well, maybe in your farm they don't.
We could build some AI safety protocols into that steel mill. It's probably fine.
And I purposely sorted the very last story to be a kind of sad animal story with a great ending.
Cemetery staff take out a personal ad for a goose whose mate died, and they found her a new match.
Aw. I mean, geese are kind of hell animals, but
So they
deserve love.
The male goose died, and the female, they noticed she was staring at shiny surfaces. She was looking at her reflection. She wanted another goose. So they went out on Facebook and they were like, this is a long shot, but are there any single male gooses out there, geese, who are lonely? And there was a family like, oh my God, one of our pond geese, the girl just died and he's so sad.
Oh.
And they put them together, and from the first moment, they loved each other.
Aw.
And now they hang out all day at the cemetery, being happy.
Oh, yeah, there's a... Oh, just missed the video. Look at it, just staring. Oh.
Fun times.
They should
What a happy story.
You know what they should do for those geese? They should give them a Taco Bell wedding.
Oh, in the metaverse.
Yeah.
The metaverse goose wedding. If you'd said that 5 years ago, everyone's like, what are you talking about? And yet that's a real sentence now.
There's artwork and all kinds of stuff. It's got quite the cult following on the internet.
As they deserve.
Yeah. If you have to follow any story, that's a good one to follow.
Fun times.
All right, that's it for the week. We will see you guys next week.
Thanks for hanging out.